very, very, very Merry Christmas. A couple days after the 28th of December, Wire to Wire Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Gene Walzak. I need a haircut, man. That's what I need. And you can't get in the barbershop right before Christmas. It just never worked. But I'm your host, Gene Walzak, that needs a haircut. Coming from us back at home, man. He's gotten back home. We missed him last week. He was in and out. He was chopped and screwed. Cottrell Simpson. College Cottrell. I can't call him College Cottrell. The OSU Redeem Team college bracket is pathetic. They're like second from the bottom.
Hey, just know we know what's going on when we don't have any opt-outs and all that nonsense, so that's what's important.
I feel that. Ann Arbor Bullies, Michigan's own Uncle Shally. How was your Christmas, Shally? How'd you feel?
Christmas is great, man. It's the best Christmas I've had in a long time. So very blessed and very appreciative. Had a great Christmas.
Well, gentlemen, I've just been banned from Facebook. So that's all the shares I can do for today. But I shared too much. They put me in share jail. We got a lot to get into. And not a lot, really, but we got a lot in each topic. College football playoff. Y'all ready for that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And, we got to talk about some bowl games, a couple bowl games, even though they all been trash. The bowl season's been awful. Can't wait to a higher playoff so these bowl games matter more. But if we're not lying to ourselves, the bowl season's been trash. It's been tragic. Sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. Next couple of days, you're going to start getting a couple of good ones, though.
Yeah, that's
teams
the
are
goal.
starting to get better.
I mean, you've had some good ones. It just like before it'd be like, you'd see the number 10 face the number 12, and that'd be like, a great game. Like we've had some good games go on. Like Bowling Green was in a nice battle with New Mexico State, and we've had some good bowl games, but it's just not the high marquee matchups until tonight. Tonight we get one of the good ones.
I told y'all East Carolina was going to do the Coastal. I wish you would have took it to your bookie. I think they beat them by like 24 points.
Yep.
Wasn't that
really a game either.
Called that.
No.
Arkansas's mud stomping Kansas right now. It's like they got like 31 points in the second quarter. It's a joke. It's a joke. I'm sorry. I don't want to be that way.
That game's going to end up, Kansas is driving now. They score now be 31-20. Be interesting second half, but that's a no defense game. That is just absolutely up and down the field type of game. Bowling Green got screwed probably worse than anybody in the bowl season so far. Saw the beginning of that game, the quarterback, one of the dirtiest hits I've seen in a long time, knocked their starting quarterback out of the game, and then Bowling Green was pretty much trash after that for a while. That was a shame.
Well, let me hear from some of y'all in the chat. I see y'all listening. Listen, we got to talk about the two games that matter. There's two games that matter, and then there'll be a third game that stems from this game that matters. Everything else is just window dressing. And we'll start off with the 4:00 game. We'll start off with Michigan, Max Duggan, TCU, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, JJ McCarthy. So I think this spread's only like 3, which I think is embarrassing. I actually think that
it's 7.5.
A 7.5. Okay, good. I think that Michigan should roll in this one. I think they'll run all over TCU. Here's the difference in this game and what I look at when I see this game. I think Max Duggan's going to be able to score. I really do. But I don't think TCU is going to be able to stop Michigan at all. And I think what ends up happening is Michigan runs the ball, controls the clock, and wins this game. And I don't think it's going to be crazy. I think it'll end up being closer, 31-23, 34-24. But I don't think Michigan will ever be in jeopardy of losing the football game. But I'll pass it right to Cottrell. Unbiased Ohio State fans going to tell us how he sees this game going. So, Cottrell, what are your thoughts on Michigan versus TCU?
So I actually think that TCU can have some success against this Michigan team. I think Max Duggan, he's shown, what he can do. There was a reason why he was up for the Heisman, controversial or not. He had a great season coming in. With that said, though, Gene, I think you hit it on the head, though. I don't think that TCU is ever going to seriously be in contention for this. I think Duggan's going to do enough to scratch and claw, keep TCU hanging around there. But I don't think the game's ever meaningful where TCU's like down less than 10. I can easily see this one being like a, 34-21 kind of game. I think TCU, they have the potential to get the big play with Quentin Johnston on the outside. And, of course, what Max Duggan can do with his legs, he's always going to be a threat if you can't keep him inside the pocket. But I think that Michigan team is more than prepared to handle TCU and what they got going on.
Shally, what are you thinking? How are your Wolverines going to handle the Horned Frogs?
I mean, I think they're going to do what they're going to do best. I think, like you said, I think they're going to try to control the clock. They're going to run first like they have all year with Donovan Edwards. And I think they're going to make TCU stop them. And as soon as they do, then, I think you're going to see a lot of the JJ McCarthy show start. And, and I think you'll start seeing play action passes. I think it's going to be very, I think it's going to be very similar to a couple other games you've seen Michigan play this year. I think it's probably close at halftime. I think, to both your points, I think Max makes enough plays in the first half to keep it close. It's probably a field goal game, something like that, at halftime. But Michigan just wears people down, man. They don't veer off too far what they want to do. That offensive line is just going to keep pounding people like they have been all year. Best offensive line in the country again 2 years in a row. And I think, probably very similar to, like I said, you've seen other games this year. They'll make a big play probably in the third quarter, maybe one in the fourth quarter. And I think it's probably – I think they win by 2 touchdowns, and maybe the second touchdown coming late. And I agree. I don't think they're ever in danger of losing the game, but I think it's a good game. I think it's a competitive game till late. I do. I think TCU is good enough. Cottrell already met Quentin Johnston, who is a stud on the outside. If they can take some deep shots and maybe connect on one here or there, keep TCU in the game. But I just think Michigan just has too much overall at the end. I think they're too athletic in certain spots. I think the defense will get enough stops. And I don't think for 60 minutes, I don't think TCU can stop Michigan from doing what they want to do.
We got a resident Michigan fan.
Hack is a big Michigan
Chris
fan.
Hackney. They're going to bully TCU right out of BCS. He thinks it's going to be over by halftime. There's zero chance that he has any bias in those comments.
None.
Look, one thing you did mention, and I don't mean to say this, I don't mean to it's correct, right? Like factually, it's correct. Michigan #1 offensive line again in the country. I don't believe in that. I don't. And I'm not saying their offensive line's not top 4, top 5, top 6. I just think they're #1 offensive line in the Big Ten. And I think that there's 5 different leagues in college football. It might sound stupid, right? But there's different leagues in football, and they're the #1 offensive line in their league. When it comes to TCU, I don't think they have to worry much about the different disparity because I feel like they're almost playing down a league, right? I think the Big 12 is not as good as the Big 10, so I feel like that they're going to overpower the Big 12 team because I just think they're better. I'll say this, and I'll say this again. I think if Georgia gets there, I think their defensive line will do exactly what they did last year to the offensive line. And I think it'll be abusive. I really believe that. I think Jalen Carter will absolutely bully that front. And I don't think that Michigan will be able to run the ball. There's a difference this year, though. I think J.J. McCarthy, and you've seen it in the second half of last year's Michigan-Georgia game, will be able to create offense in the air and with his legs that will make this year's game a lot better if it gets there. I just feel like that, the offensive line is great. It's awesome. Their offensive line's awesome. I just don't think it's. I don't know. Maybe it is the best in the country, but I think that it's the best in the Big Ten, and the Big Ten is the second best conference in football.
I think the biggest thing with last year, again, we're talking about an all-time generational defense from Georgia. Jalen Carter, I'm sure, which we're going to talk about at length probably in the next couple minutes, is an absolute just animal. He can't be blocked when he doesn't want to be. I think the difference between this year's team and last year's team is why Jalen Carter, is better than, say, Jordan Davis was at this point. Jordan Davis had the better supporting cast last year than Jalen Carter does this year. He had Walker on the line with him. He had Nakobe Dean behind him, had people like that. Georgia's defense is still great. It's not the same level it was last year. Honestly, if we're being completely honest, and I've said it before, I don't know, since I really started watching college football, I don't think I've ever watched a defense that was better than Georgia's last year.
Completely agree with you.
They were disgusting. They had 6 guys that were drafted in the first round. That's unheard of, man. That's unheard of. And 2 of the guys weren't even draft eligible. If they were, they might have got drafted too. That is an absolute all-time generational defense. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Georgia. I've made no bones about it. I think they're the best team in the country. But I think Michigan will have more success. They have 3 guys back from last year on that line that started. They had an All-American center who just won Center of the Year and Interior Lineman of the Year. I truly believe this year's offensive line is better than last year's. And I think you hit it on the head. I'm not going to sit here and predict right now that I think Michigan's going to beat Georgia. I sure as hell think the game's a lot more competitive than it was last year if we get there. But both teams have good teams in front of them that they got to beat Saturday. So getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with that.
100%. We'll get into that in a second. But the reason I hope it's Michigan, Georgia, PD. I really, really hope so. I'm going to get into what I think is going to be some weirdness in a second. I have like a real weird take on Georgia, Ohio State. So we'll get there in a minute. Cottrell, what is the path for TCU to pull the upset over Michigan? Like, all right, let's just say Cottrell is running the game plan for TCU. You're a coach, right? You have your team. What is the game plan for TCU to be able to upset Michigan?
I think it's similar to what you saw a little bit of it in the Illinois game, and you saw a little bit of it in the first half of the Ohio State game.
Okay.
You're not going to be able to shut down Michigan completely. Like Ohio State slowed down their rushing attack, but then they got beat through the air. Illinois didn't necessarily slow them down, but after Blake Corum got hurt, you saw they slowed down a bit. Blake Corum's not going to be out there this Saturday. So if I'm TCU, I try to limit what they do in the rushing attack. You can't give up these chunk plays, 10, 15 yards, 20 yards, or, let Donovan Edwards break these long touchdowns. I think you limit that, and then you also make J.J. McCarthy make those big-time throws to beat you. Against Ohio State, they schemed up a lot of great stuff where their guys were open, and J.J. McCarthy, he's a 5-star kid. He's going to put the ball on the money, and, those guys are going to go make their plays. But if you make it harder and make him fit the ball in the tough windows in that caliber game, I think you're going to be in a situation where, you have a chance to win that game. I think that's your best bet. You want to make JJ beat you, but not just making the easy throw. You want to make him fit the ball in the tight windows and show, why he was this highly coveted recruit coming out of high school.
The easy part of this is this is what you have to do. And this is what hurt Ohio State in the second half. You have to be able to stop the run with 8. You can't sell your soul to stop the run. You have to be able to shut down the run with 8 guys. If you can keep that extra guy out of the box, it limits a little bit what they can do play action wise. It limits a little bit what they can do with getting the ball downfield. If you have to bring that safety down, or have to bring another corner in, or go to 4 linebackers like Ohio State did in the second half, and you're going to let that line block for 3 seconds and let JJ get a clean look, that's how they're going to kill you. They will torch you. That's it. There hasn't been a team that's been able to successfully do it for 60 minutes. Ohio State, like I said, Ohio State sold their souls in the first half, and they shut them down. They did. Michigan made adjustments at halftime, and you saw what the result was. You have to have a balance of both somewhere, and nobody's been able to figure it out yet. So that's really what you need to do. If you can stop putting that extra guy in the box and shut down Edwards, or limit them to 3-4 yards of carry, not let them get chunk plays of, like Cottrell said, 7, 8, 9 yards and stay in front of the sticks, then you have a shot. If you're going to let Michigan be 2nd and 2 all the time, you're in for a long day because they'll either just keep running the ball down your throat or they'll take shots at 2nd and 2. And if they don't get them, then they'll just go 3rd and 2, run the ball, get another first down.
Agreed.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, that's, it's a lot easier said than done, but I mean, that's what it's going to take.
I think it's spicy to talk about. I really do. I think Michigan wins the game, but I'm telling you, I think the game's close early. I think Michigan will be on their heels in the second quarter. I just think that offensive line beats them down a little too much. And in the second half, you see a lot of where they pull away. I really believe it's going to look like Michigan, Ohio State first half. Close game, back and forth. I think the second half is where that offensive line beats on them. And I really believe that. I think that was cool. So, main event. The main event of the evening. 8 o'clock, it's going to ring the new year in. Cottrell is either going to be a happy man or a very sad man on New Year's Day. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I will be a sad man on New Year's Day. I mean,
it's your team. I mean, when are you going to be sad? When are you going to be happy? It's going to be go Buckeyes or go Dogs.
Well, follow me real quick. And I read into this shit way more than I probably should. You know this, right? I hate the point spread in this game. I hate the way it's set up. I hate where the money's at. 80% of the money's on Georgia. Point spread's not moving. It actually went from 6.5 to 7.5, back down to 6.5 when 80% of the money is on Georgia. It should be at 8.5. It should be at 9. It should be at 10. If Georgia was a 9-point favorite right now, I would feel better about Saturday. I would. The fact that it's 6.5 and 80% of the money is on Georgia and the spread's not moving, Vegas is smarter than me. I understand that. I follow trends. I follow and understand why line movement is and what that situation is. I followed it enough to tell you about the reverse line movement in Georgia, Alabama last year in the national championship. I look at this game and it scares me. I'm not saying that Georgia loses the football game. If I'm being honest with you, I don't know how Georgia loses the football game. They're better. They're better in every sense of the word. They're better on offense. They're better on defense. They're better to run the football. They're better to stop the run. They're better to pass the football. They're better to stop the pass. But what I will say is this is one of those games. This is one of those games where I feel like a blown coverage, an early lead for Ohio State, giving them some confidence in that situation could be bad. Now, Bill, you said something earlier, and I thought it was really interesting. You said this year's Georgia defense is not as good as what last year's was. And I agree with that. You got Trayvon Walker, you had Jordan Davis, you had Nakobe Dean, you had studs everywhere on that defense. This year, you really have 2 top 10 picks, and then you might not get another first rounder out of their defense. But their offense is a lot better. Stetson's a lot better. Eric, tight end, is incredible. Kid's a stud, and that's adding to Brock Bowers. I don't think they'll have a problem moving the ball against Ohio State, but McIntosh, kid's going to be next Nick Chubb. It's a little bit, I know, but
it's a tad much.
But I think Georgia should win the football game. And if I was writing the recipe, I would have a slogan to Kirby Smart. Don't get cute.
Agreed.
Don't get
1,000%.
cute. Run the football, control the football, control the clock. Don't try to make Stetson Bennett look like he's supposed to be a Heisman Trophy winner. He's not an NFL caliber quarterback. He's just not. Sorry. I understand these things. Make CJ Stroud throw the ball into tight windows. Make sure Ohio State can't run the football. That's the blueprint. Cottrell, I'm sure that you've convinced yourself at this point that Ohio State's going to win the football game and that they deserve to be here. So I'd like to hear your take.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's much of a doubt that they deserve to be here after how everything else unfolded. I mean, I think, obviously with all the 2-loss teams in the country, that kind of stuff, I think whether it's they snuck in or whatever, I think they deserve they've advocated enough to be the 4th best team in the country. But with that said, though, I think what we always say, I think is coming to fruition in here. Styles make fights, and Ohio State is they do well at covering tight ends. Georgia, they have the best tight ends in the country. Now, with that said, Darnell Washington and Brock Bowers are going to go. They're still great athletes. They're still going to be hard to contain. And they're still going to have great games. I'm sure about that. With that said, though, I think this is a situation where, Ohio State, if you do, go all out, you stop the run, you have to make those tackles on those guys like Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. And we've seen the last 2 weeks that Ohio State was on the field. They gave up the big play versus Maryland, and they gave up the big plays versus Michigan. You have to limit that Georgia Bulldogs offense and make them drive downfield and beat you. I said it last year when Stetson was their QB. You want to get them with long drives. If you can somehow find a way to have them have, 12, 13, 14 play drives, Stetson or someone else on that offense they're bound to make a mistake, or you just have more of an advantage that way. Don't let the chunk plays beat you this week. And I do think that, Georgia's defense obviously is phenomenal. Now, granted, they're not as good as they were last year, but Keely Ringo, we talked about Jalen Carter already. Nolan Smith's on that defense. He's still a great player. But this Georgia team has been susceptible to the big play. We saw it against LSU. Teams aren't afraid to throw the ball downfield against them. Their corners make plays, but they also give up a lot of big plays as well. So your receivers, your 5-star kids, they got to come to play. Emeka Ibuka, you got to go, make a jump ball catch. Marvin Harrison, you got to go make plays on the ball. And of course, it's going to come down to CJ Stroud and, him making the right decision and things like that. But I think this is a good matchup. And obviously, I think Georgia's the best team in the country to date. But I think this is a good matchup for Ohio State.
So you said something, and I'll go right to Shally. And I can see Shally shaking his head already. He thinks it's a good matchup for Ohio State. I know you feel very strongly that Georgia's going to win this football game.
I do.
But there's one thing I kind of would just err on the side of caution about here. And I mean this. I really do. Georgia has a tendency to get up for games when they matter. So, yes, Kent State, Missouri, you can look at some of those games and see breaks in the armor, right? LSU, you can say susceptible to big play. They were up 52-20 when LSU was making these plays. Like it's not like
not true. When their backup quarterback came in,
destroyed LSU.
No, they did. They did absolutely. They absolutely did. But let's not act like the big plays only happened once the game was out of hand. That's not true.
The game was out of hand in the second quarter.
If you go back through that game, there was a point in time where LSU had scored like 2 or 3 straight possessions off of big plays. Keyshawn Butte was going crazy on the Georgia defense.
LSU was never close to winning that football game.
I didn't say it was close, but it's not like Georgia had in their backups and it was garbage time points. It was fair. It was like late second quarter, early third quarter. Like there was a lot of time left in the game.
But if you look at every time, Georgia had to get up for 4 games this year. They got up for Oregon, destroyed them. They got up for Tennessee, destroyed them. They got up for LSU, destroyed them. Every time Georgia had a big matchup where they're like a point spread under 10, I mean, I know LSU wasn't, but every time you're like, oh, this could be a close game, Georgia absolutely destroyed the team they played. I'm hoping against hope here. I'm hoping it's like a New Year's Eve gift. They're just going to let all these guys make 80% of the market make money. Because I feel like Georgia's better everywhere. Shally, tell us how the game's going to go from an unbiased Michigan perspective.
I mean, I've been saying it for weeks. I mean, the blueprint's there. And the one thing, I've been consistent with as well, and I said this, why this is a bad matchup for Ohio State. Georgia's better at doing certain things than what Michigan does. And we know what Ohio State's Achilles heel is now. They're not going to be able to stop the run without putting that extra guy in the box. And as soon as you do, Stetson Bennett, they're going to go to a 12 formation, and they're going to destroy them with tight ends. I just don't see any way where Ohio State's consistently going to get off the field defensively. I just don't. If they can't stop the run, that game will look eerily similar to what happened in Columbus this year with Michigan. Georgia will just run the ball. They'll run the ball 12 plays straight. They don't care. And you mentioned a very good point earlier, Gene. Kirby Smart is smart enough, no pun intended. He's not going to get cute. He knows what works. He knows what Stetson Bennett is. He's been consistent with that. That is the one thing that killed us last year. The one thing that he was going to struggle with was with Ojabo and Aiden Hutchinson pressuring him. So what did Kirby Smart do? He came out of the gate. If they weren't running the ball, they were throwing bubble screens all game. They were getting the ball out of his hand. Don't let him get back there. Don't let him get pressure. Don't let him make a big mistake. Ball's out of his hand. They killed us with bubble screens. They're not going to get cute. That is a very veteran team over there now. It is. You've guys last year that were more role players that are starters now. Stetson Bennett is 25 years old. He's a seasoned quarterback. He's not going to make the big mistake in that game. I've been adamant from the get-go. I thought Ohio State was going to get in with the way everything played out, and I thought from the get-go it was a terrible matchup for them. I just don't. I think C.J. Stroud with those receivers can make plays here and there. I don't think they're able to make them consistent enough to stay in that game. I don't. I think the strength of Ohio State is clearly their offense. It's not their defense. And that's not good against a team that's as efficient as Georgia is. Everybody's talking about the passing yards gave up. I saw a really interesting stat today that really kind of even cemented more of how I thought this game was going to go. When Georgia's was in a game this year within 10 points, they have the third best passing defense in the country. Kind of cements what me and Gene were just talking about. When they're giving up garbage time yards or giving up yards when they're up by 25, when they have, when their starters maybe aren't in or they're playing more lax coverage, yeah, they're giving up big chunks that people are looking at the big numbers that LSU and a couple other teams put up. When those games were within 10 points, Georgia has the third best secondary in the country. I think Marvin Harrison, for my money, is the best receiver in the country. I said that 2 weeks ago. I just don't know what type of game he has to have to make them to keep them in the game. I really don't. I just think it's a terrible matchup for them. I really do. That's think Ohio State
matchup of the whole game is Keely Ringo versus Marvin
Harrison. It absolutely is. I think if Jalen Carter,
find out right now if Keely Ringo is better than Eli Ricks this week. You will. You'll find out this week.
Yeah, listen. If he shadows him, which I don't know he will, but if he does, listen. Covering him, he's going to give up catches somewhere. He's just 100%. Too good. He's too good, and I look at it this way too. And I think the biggest thing, if Jalen Carter shows up and decides to be man-child and start throwing people all over the place, and Ohio State can't run, then I think it becomes a bloodbath. I really do. If they can run early, get outside maybe, and establish something like that, and at least keep Georgia honest for a little bit, for a quarter and a half, and really let C.J. Stroud settle in and, maybe run play action, stuff like that. Then I think Ohio State has a chance to keep the game close to the second half and then make some adjustments, and then who the hell knows what happens. I just don't think they're going to. And like you said, I think we've seen it before. I think every time people, make this narrative that this is the team that's going to knock Georgia off or something like that, I saw it last year with us. It was, they play the same kind of football as you. They're going to come in here and push you guys around. We got dominated. And I think people are overselling this game because they want to make it sound interesting and they want to do this and they want to do that. I think it's as simple as if Georgia comes out and plays Georgia football, I think they're going to beat Ohio State. I think C.J. Stroud will make plays here and there. I do. He's too good. He's not going to go 60 minutes and not make plays. I don't know if you're an Ohio State fan, how you can honestly look in the mirror and say you have any faith in that defense of not giving up 40 points.
Well, I got a question for you.
If Georgia gets to 40, I think the game's over.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
I'm going to do the same thing I just did to Cottrell. What is the blueprint? You're Ohio State's coach. You're creating the scheme, the offense. You're creating the defense. You're the head coach. Ryan Day has been replaced by Bill Shawcross. Give me the blueprint on how you prepare for Georgia? How do you beat them?
Just said part of it a second ago. You have to stay consistent with the run. You have to try to maybe get outside. You can't let Jalen Carter take over that game in the beginning of the game. You can't run at him, let him make a big play or get a couple tackles for loss and really get involved. You got to keep him dormant or at least neutral as long as you can. Take shots down the field early. Let them know that you're not afraid to do it. I think if there's any advantage in this football game, and I honestly to God, I think the biggest advantage there is in any position group, it's Ohio State's wide receivers over Georgia's wide receivers. They are by far superior. Got to take shots early. I think Ryan Day got very pass happy and very conservative against Michigan, and I think it cost them. I think Cottrell would agree with that. You're going to have the two best wide receivers on the outside in the game. Use them. Make Georgia make plays. If there is one, constructive criticism against Georgia, as good as they are covering wise, they're not great on the ball in the air. Read a lot of stuff today about how scouts were saying, their ball skills are lacking. Great coverage, but when the ball's up a jump ball, they're not great. See if you pop one early. And make Georgia come out of what they want to do. I just think you have to be aggressive. I think you have to be aggressive and try to play your game. If you're going to try to cower and outmaneuver Georgia or outmaneuver that defense, I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. And defensively, I think you almost have to go in with the Michigan game plan until they beat you. It's got to be a little bit different because you have two tight ends that you have to cover. But you got to put your outside corners on islands, and they got to play well. You have to stop Georgia from running the football. If Georgia can just run the football, like I said, it sounds crazy, but it's going to be Michigan all over. They're just going to run the ball down the field. That's what they're going to do. You have to stop it. You got to put your corners on an island. Hope they make some plays early, and again, just be aggressive. Georgia's not a team you're going to beat being timid. That's my opinion.
Okay. I love the breakdown. Let's give score predictions.
Michigan, I think Michigan wins 38-24. Georgia, I think Georgia wins 44-31.
31. Cottrell.
I got Michigan winning. I think I said 34-21. I got Ohio State winning 37-31.
Okay. I think the blueprint for Ohio State is to limit Georgia's possessions. I think if Georgia scores 30 points, I don't think Ohio State's got a snowball's chance of hell winning that game. They have to limit Georgia's possessions. They have to be able to control clock and limit the overall possessions of the game. The way bad teams beat good teams, go back to Washington versus Philadelphia in the NFL, is they control the clock and they limit possessions. The more times the Eagles are on the field or Georgia's on the field, the worse it is for Ohio State. I think this is a close game. I truly believe that. I think Georgia wins this one 31-27. Very close game, skin of their teeth type game. I actually think that this game will be ended with an interception around the 15 or 20 yard line of Georgia on a drive. Ohio State's driving the ball to try to win the game. That's where my head goes. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
I think we're going to be set up for the most watched national championship game of all time. Ohio State, Michigan. No bigger stage.
If that's what we get, I don't disagree. It will be. But the only thing I slightly disagree with, Gene, I think Ohio State is built to score quick. And that's what they're comfortable doing. I'm not saying they got to score in 2 plays all the time, but I don't think Ohio State is going to be able to run the ball effectively enough. I think they can run enough to keep them honest. Ohio State's not built to run the ball like 3 yards in a cloud of dust and do it over again and have like a 15 play drive. I don't think they want to do that. I actually, just my opinion, I think if they can hit the big play and score quick, and maybe get up enough to the point where, Georgia has to start like consistently throwing the ball, I think that's where their best shot is. I think if you can get Georgia out of what they really want to do and make Stetson Bennett become the guy that has to consistently throw the ball down the field to beat you, I would really like my odds and like my chances if I'm Ohio State if that has to happen.
Okay. Can we get into Bowl Mania update? And I kind of want to talk about 1 or 2 bowl games right now, just kind of like some other bowl games that are going to happen before we get on the show next week.
Sure.
All right, so this is the bowl. Oh, look at this. Is that Shally in first place again?
Might be.
Yeah. You did well. You did well today with these. You're 2 games ahead of me. We were tied just recently, but I'm guessing you had Wisconsin. I did not, and I'm guessing you had Duke. I did not.
I went 4-0 yesterday, and then I had Duke this afternoon. Yeah.
I am. So we got Gator. Don't take no shit.
It's Brandon.
I know he switched over from Coastal to East Carolina, and that's the difference right now. He's in first place with you and the Wise. Eventual winner. I don't know who that is. It's 14-9. Chad Wagner's. Is that Chad Wagner? I can't.
Wagler, I think.
Wagler. I am 13-10 as well as Key. Hooker should have been Heisman, which is Joseph Jeffers. We got some good 13-10. Atkins t-shirt. That's probably Brad Atkins. Yeah, we got some good. Where's Ohio State Redeem Team? Oh.
It's not about how you start, baby. It's how you finish.
Hey, listen, I'm gonna pick up 2 games with Ohio State.
Yep, exactly. I'm gonna pick up a game there.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. There's a couple other bowl games that are worth talking about, so I want to talk about them real quick. Just little appetizers, little desserts. It's okay. Just in the Christmas theme of things. First, you got Texas Ole Miss in the Tax Act Texas Bowl.
Texas is facing
Texas Tech, Ole Miss.
Texas Tech, yeah.
I apologize. I missed the Tech. Relax. I was saying taxes and Tech. I fixed myself quick. Relax.
Hey, all right.
I got Ole Miss in this one. I got Ole Miss versus Texas Tech. I think Ole Miss wins this one. That'll be tonight, 9:00. So I just kind of want to give the listeners a little bit of insight. I think Ole Miss wins this one. I think they win it. I think they covered a 4 too. I don't think this game's as close as the spread indicates. What do you guys think?
I'll take Ole Miss as well. I think, why can't I think of his name right now? Their Ole Miss head coach,
Lane Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin's going to have the Rebels ready to go. And Ole Miss is in a situation where, as far as last I checked, they didn't have any big opt-outs for this one. So I think Ole Miss will be ready to roll, and I think they cover that 4 as well, Gene.
Shally?
I like Ole Miss. I'm not as confident as you guys they cover though. Texas Tech played pretty well down the stretch, and to go kind of against everything we say about the Big 12, Texas Tech actually plays decent defense. I think it's a close game. I think Ole Miss's athleticism and talent on the outside, I think eventually gets the win. Ole Miss's defense is really bad. It's not good. Texas Tech's going to throw the ball all over the place against Ole Miss. I think it's a high-scoring game. I don't know what the over-under is, but if it's not an obscene number, I kind of like the over there. But I think Ole Miss squeaks one out, maybe a field goal late. Nowhere near as confident about the cover as you two are.
All right. Well, the next game I want to look at, and is there another one I'm missing in between? You guys said there was another big game tonight.
Oregon, North Carolina.
North
Carolina stinks.
Drake May's playing.
Is he?
I mean, he's playing. Yeah, he's playing. So is Bo Nix, though. So I mean, I think Drake May will have a decent game. He'll do his thing, but I mean, I don't know who on North Carolina is going to stop the Oregon offense either. So I think it's a big spread. The last time I checked,
13.
It's double digits. I mean, I think if Oregon shows up and gets off the bus and plays well, I think they win.
The game I wanted to talk about, because my opinion has changed and I will be changing my pick. Texas versus Washington.
Okay.
I am moving over to the underdog side. I'm going to take Washington in this game. Michael Penix Jr., they've been super hot. I'm going Washington in this one. I really believe that. I don't know what's going on in Texas, but my confidence is not high. Is Bijan playing?
Bijan has opted out.
Opted out.
Xavier Worthy playing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I think it'll be close, but I'm teetering back towards Washington. I originally had Texas in this one, but I'm going back with Michael Penix Jr. I'm going with Washington.
Well, I originally had Washington, and I'm sticking with Washington. I think you made a great point about Michael Penix Jr. and that Washington offense. I think what they have already, they're going to build upon that. And Michael Penix is coming back next year again, so I think this will be a great test. And I think if you come out and you have a good bowl game here, your preseason, not that it matters much, but your preseason rankings going into next year will be pretty high because you're bringing back your starting quarterback. And on the other side for Texas, Quinn Ewers, I think this is a game that low key has a lot of pressure built into it. This will be Texas's last look at Quinn Ewers before Arch Manning is on campus next year. So as much as I think that Quinn Ewers is still going to be the starter next year, even with Arch on campus and with the Longhorns, I think this is quietly a big game for Quinn Ewers, because if he goes out and he throws 2-3 interceptions and doesn't look well, then I think you have a true quarterback controversy on your hands in Texas.
I said that same exact point 3 weeks ago when we were previewing bowl season in general. I think there's a lot of pressure on Quinn Ewers to go out and play well. Caught a little flack from you guys earlier this year, saying there's going to be a quarterback competition next year. And I firmly believe there's going to be. I don't think he's played well enough, consistent enough to walk in the next camp next year and hands down be the number one. We'll see how he looks. See how he looks tomorrow, but I agree with you. I think there's a lot of pressure on him for him to go out and play well tomorrow. Because I think if he doesn't, I think the shadow and the expectations of Archie Manning are getting even bigger when he steps on campus. It's like anything else this year with Texas. I don't know which Texas team we're getting. Are we getting a team that showed up against Alabama and I think would kill Washington, or are we getting a team that gave up 50 to some middle of the pack Big 12 team? But I picked Washington originally, and and then with Bijan opting out, I think I like my choice there even more now, to be honest.
A low key game that I think is becoming a lot of people's favorite game of this bowl season. Notre Dame versus South Carolina. I don't know what happened the last 2 games, but Spencer Rattler versus Tennessee and Clemson has looked like number 1 overall pick Spencer Rattler. Looked like the Spencer Rattler that we thought was going to be the first overall pick going in the last year. He's looked great. South Carolina's followed. Notre Dame has really turned it on second half of the season. I think they were 0-3 to start the season. They finished 8-4, which is just 8-1 after that 0-3 start. I think it's going to be a very good football game. I really, really believe that. I've been going back and forth on this one. I think I'm going to stick with Notre Dame, which who I have now. But don't be surprised if I switch that last minute.
I like South Carolina in that game. Notre Dame's had some opt-outs. Both of their quarterbacks are gone. In the portal as well. So I think that is going to be I think South Carolina is going to score enough to win that game. I think Notre Dame's defense will still be will play very well. But I think South Carolina is going to have the ball a lot. I think if we get the same, to your point, if we get the same Spencer Rattler that we got the last 2 weeks, I think South Carolina puts up enough points to win that game. I don't know what Notre Dame's going to do. Notre Dame's going to do offensively. They don't have a quarterback. Michael Mayer, who's going to be the top 10, top 15 pick, a tight end. He's opted out. He's not playing. So Notre Dame is going to struggle mightily on offense in that game.
Bill, I agree with pretty much everything you said, but I think the Michael Mayer opt-out is the biggest thing for me. That Notre Dame offense, they really relied on Michael Mayer, and he was about as reliable as you can get, So I think him not being there and being that safety blanket for whoever's out there playing quarterback for them, it's going to be huge. And I think South Carolina, with what they had going on in the season, I think that consistency is there for them, and I think they're just going to build on top of that. And I think they beat Notre Dame, and I don't necessarily think maybe it ends up, a 7-point game, but I think South Carolina is going to always be steadily in control of that game.
We get the backup quarterback bowl, Tennessee versus Clemson, with DJ opting out, going to Oregon State.
That ain't why he's not that's not why he's the backup.
Listen,
lost his job.
I get it. My question would be, who wins the backup quarterback bowl? I want to keep it quick, but Joseph Jeffers is in the comments, so I want to appease Tennessee here.
I'm going to go first because I've firsthand knowledge of this. Joseph Jeffers, I'm telling you right now to lower your expectations of what's going to happen in that game. Joe Milton is not a good quarterback. I don't know how else to say that. I think he's an enigma. He's a guy that makes, great plays here and there, and he will just drive you crazy and make you throw your remote through your TV and make the minutes later. He throws the ball to the other team too much. That's his Achilles heel. He's not great at reading zone coverage. I like Clemson in that game. Again, to Cottrell's point, we're not getting the backup quarterback per se because, DJ decided to transfer out of nowhere. This kid's going to be the starter next year. And he looks like he's ready to go. I mean, they look like a different team when he's on the field. And Dabo just ran out of excuses to keep running DJ out there, to be honest. That's what happened. He stuck with him as long as he could, and he just couldn't do it anymore for the sake of the team. So I like Clemson in that game. That was my original thought. Hendon Hooker's playing. I think I love Tennessee, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I like Clemson in that game.
I'm also rolling with Clemson. I think this is a very, obviously talent-wise not the same, but I think this is a very similar circumstance to when Dabo had to make the decision to pull Kelly Bryant, who had been the starter at Clemson, and decided to throw in Trevor Lawrence, the true freshman. Cade Klubnik he's special, 5-star kid. He's the real deal. Now, granted, throwing him in this situation where he's starting a New Year's Six bowl game, the pressure might be on him. The lights might be too bright, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's going to show you that he's special and show you next year that Clemson's going to be a force to reckon with yet again. So I got Clemson in this one.
Does not tell you why we can't skip college football too long, because there's so much to go over. We haven't talked about it really. Last game on the docket I want to talk about is Alabama K-State. I think Alabama puts a statement out there versus Kansas State with everybody playing in that game. Bryce Young, Will Anderson. I think that Alabama goes, listen, you didn't want us in the college football playoff. We'll make sure it never happens again. I think they put a statement on K-State. I don't think it's close. I really believe that.
I 100% agree. I don't think there's any shot that Will Anderson and Bryce Young lose their last football game. And I don't think there's anybody in that locker room or coaching staff allows that to happen. I think K-State will keep it competitive for a quarter and a half. I don't know by 40, but I think it gets out of hand the second half. I think Bryce Young gets his curtain call probably somewhere in the fourth quarter. I like Alabama by 25 plus. I think it's a mud stopping.
I actually somewhat disagree with you. I think Bama wins this game. I think it'll maybe be a 14-point Bama win, but I think for 3 quarters this game is going to be somewhat entertaining. I think K-State is going. This is their Super Bowl for all intents and purposes.
Yep.
K-State, they've never had a game this big before. In recent memory. And I think those guys are going to lay it all out on the line. We saw them fight and claw in that Big 12 championship game, and I get it. Alabama's a completely different animal than what TCU is. But with that said, I think this Bama team, and granted, they ended up with just the 2 losses, but they've shown that they've had chinks in their armor, and it's not just against those big name teams. Texas shown that they're susceptible to beating them. K-State is a good football team, and they're playing good football right now. I think they're going to find a way to keep that game close, but then in the end, it's just going to be Bama has the better horses, and you're going to see Bama do what Bama does, and they win that 2-possession game.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on to NFL. Any final comments, college football?
Yeah, just waiting for Saturday. It's gonna be
can't wait.
It's gonna be interesting New Year's for all 3 of us.
Man, oh man.
Yeah, something tells me that regardless of what happens, I will not be as up or down as either one of y'all. Because I am such a fair weather Georgia fan. It's not funny.
That is not accurate.
Georgia loses. He's like, you know what? I think Penn State's on the recruiting trail right now. You know?
Joey Porter Jr. All right, guys. NFL action. A lot of stuff happened this week. Nathaniel Hackett was fired. Derek Carr was benched. I got a million things to get into. A lot of them start with the AFC West. But I kind of want to start with the Nathaniel Hackett firing. And I want to be quick here because I think it's a no-brainer. I think it was obvious. I tweeted during the game. I said, if this game does not get Nathaniel Hackett fired, I don't know what will. That was an embarrassment. Baker Mayfield shredded them. Like the team completely quit on their coach. It was very obvious. That defense all year has been very good. Obviously, Russell Wilson puts him in a terrible position. That defense has been great all year. Not good, great all year. They let up 51 to Baker Mayfield and the Rams with no starting wide receivers. That team quit. They quit on their coach. And I'm okay with that because Nathaniel Hackett needed to go. He's terrible. My question for you would be, and I don't want to be too long here, which NFL coaching candidate would you think would be best suited for the Denver job?
I mean, you're hearing the one name already, which is Sean Payton. I think the logic there is he can go in there. He's already got a great defense in place. And the logical thinking here is he can go in and get Russell Wilson back on track. And then, that offense will look like what we all thought it was going to, at the beginning of the year with Sutton and Judy and Hamler healthy. And, you get Javonte Williams back at some point next year, most likely, and that's an explosive offense. So, I mean, it's hard to argue it. I mean, I think Sean Payton would be successful there. I think you look at what he did with Drew Brees for so long. I don't think he wouldn't be able to fix, what's going on with the offense. We kind of nailed this on the head when it happened. I mean, this was an educated gamble by Denver. They were going to hire Hackett, and they were hoping Aaron Rodgers was going to tag along, and that didn't happen. And they got stuck with a guy who is a very good coordinator, but was nowhere near ready to be an NFL head coach. And you just pissed away the 2022 season. It's been an absolute dumpster fire from the start.
Brad Atkins gave a great answer, man. Shane Steichen is one of the people that I think that would make most sense for that Broncos job. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell Sean Payton takes that job.
No, not at all. No shot. That's why he left New Orleans.
Yeah, I really believe that Sean Payton was gearing up for an opportunity if Brandon Staley got fired. And he was going to go to the LA Chargers and take Justin Herbert and put Vic Fangio in charge of that defense and build an absolute juggernaut out west. I don't think this is a very admirable job. I don't think this is a job that most people want. I'll be strong when I say this, right? You have an awful contract with an aging quarterback that does not have the support of his team. It's a terrible job. I think the only people you're going to get to hire that job is, and Hackney, let me get into the Bieniemy thing in a minute. But I think the only people you can hire for that job are coordinators that want to take a next step up. No, I don't think any previous head coach is going to want to walk into Broncos country. I'm glad it happened. I think if you see a situation that might be best suited, I think it's someone like Shane Steichen, somebody that can scheme an offense open, be able to utilize quarterback skill sets. Steichen's already shown that he can do that with Jalen Hurts. I think that Russell Wilson would be that he's laid the blueprint out. You're not taking a guy that used to coach a pocket passer. So I think Steichen is actually a great answer and was on my list of names. Control?
I feel like I would go the opposite route. As much as I think it's important to get that Broncos offense back on the right track, I would lean on, what the strength of that team is right now. That's the defense. I would hire, I would think DeMeco Ryans from the 49ers. I think he'd be a great candidate for that job. The Broncos have the defensive pieces already. And if you could build upon that and you figure you can get a great offensive mind to come in and be your OC and you give him full reign of the offense and, scheme stuff open, it's not like the Broncos don't have the pieces there to be successful. Obviously I get it. Russell Wilson looked like a shell of himself. But again, I don't know how much of that is him. I don't know how much percentage wise it goes his regression, Nathaniel Hackett's play calling, and his team completely quitting on him. If you get a new offensive-minded coach in, scheme some stuff open, get these guys on the right page, things like that, I don't know how different, that offense can look. Because I think the potential is there. Even if Russell Wilson is a top, 18 to 20 quarterback, that's a Broncos team that can make the playoffs because that defense has been that good this season. And I think they're going to continue to trend that way next season. So I think if you get the right offensive mind in as your OC, I think you can get Ryans in there as your head coach, and he can help build that culture. We see what's going on with the Jets now with Robert Saleh there. Why not bring that kind of culture to this Broncos team?
Got news for you. DeMeco Ryans is going to have offers all at his door. And why would you take one of the worst offers in the NFL? Kyle Edwards just asked a question, and I kind of want to reply. The answer is the Broncos. It's not the Colts, because the Colts are going to have a draft pick to select a franchise quarterback. They have a number one wideout. They have a number one running back, and they have an offensive line that can protect the quarterback when healthy. They have a defense that's top 10 in the league when healthy. The answer is 100% the Broncos. The Broncos are in a nightmare situation.
I disagree with that.
Broncos have a better defense. They have better weapons. They have a quarterback in place,
and they got a running back that's young. And I know he's coming off ACL injury, but
other than
situation,
you're selling me on JT there. That's it. I'm not going to that team strictly for JT.
You're selling me on JT. The team's built without a quarterback. That's what they are.
Right. So you're going there. You're going
to have a top 10 draft pick. You take CJ Stroud.
That's if you can be up there. If you don't get it, Bryce Young's probably going once. So if you don't get one of the top two guys, who are you picking? Then you're getting to that Will Levis conversation.
Yep.
Exactly. No thanks. We already agree on him.
Or Russell Wilson and the Broncos. I personally would take the Broncos.
I would take the quarterback that's on the non-ridiculous contract and being able to have cap room to spend. You don't. If you're the Colts, you also don't have to. You know what's crazy about the Colts situation is the Colts don't have to draft a quarterback. They could buy one. Like, I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson's going to go to Indianapolis, right? But you could pay a quarterback to go there. Everything else is there.
You can, but if I've also looked at how the past 5 years have been, why would I want to put myself in that situation as well? Like, I'm going to get an Asian quarterback. Like, I don't want to end up with, and I'm not saying Derek Carr is a bad quarterback, but obviously he had a bad season, this year. And, you could put it on McDaniels, you could put it on Carr, you could put it on whoever, but that's the kind of quarterback that's probably going to end up in Indianapolis next year, and they're going to try to put
top 12 quarterback.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying,
so why would you not do that?
But in the situation that, what if he's not though? What if we're seeing how Derek Carr really is, and it's not Josh McDaniels?
Because we watched him last year.
I agree, but again, we thought Carson Wentz going to be with Frank Reich. We thought that was going to work out. We thought Matt Ryan. Nobody ever said Matt Ryan was elite by any means, but we thought Matt Ryan going to Indy in that situation, he'd be okay with Frank Reich, and that just hasn't been the case so far.
I think they both have terrible ownership groups.
Well,
I don't think they're either favorable jobs. I just take the way I can spend the $250 million versus the $250 already spent. That's
the Broncos got new ownership, though.
Right?
So you come in with the fresh slate. I said the Broncos got new ownership, so you come in with the fresh
John
slate.
Elway.
True, but the ownership aspect of it, you got a fresh slate. I would want that fresh slate. I don't want Jim Irsay on my back about telling me what I can and can't do.
And Elway's not GM anymore.
He's president of football operations.
He's not the GM. He's not going to make those decisions anymore.
Man, I will tell you this. Something that stood out very clearly to me, and it hits very home to me because I've been arguing this point forever. was the Brian Flores interview experience. And what they did to hire Nathaniel Hackett and bullshitted through the Rooney Rule interview, showed up drunk that morning to hire, that to me symbolizes awful culture in that organization.
But again,
maybe it's changed with the new ownership group.
That was before.
A year ago. That's
new
7
ownership.
months ago.
New ownership.
They took hold of the franchise after that happened. They're going to hire they're going to hire who they want to hire. And I think that's one of the reasons they canned him in the middle of the season, because at this point they're not attached to him. They didn't make that hire.
I fired
and they might do that. So I mean, you got to see what you're gonna do. But like I said, he doesn't have the power that he did for the last 10 years. There, it's more of a title than anything else.
I get it.
Again, dude, it's my biggest thing with Indy is too, man. And I said this before. They put everything on to Taylor, man. They do not add weapons anywhere on that team. I don't care who you put back there. If Derek Carr looked like crap this year with an aging offensive line, which is exactly what I have at Indy, with no Devontae Adams, you're gonna have Michael Pittman, who's nice. He's good. He's not top 10.
I don't.
You think he's gonna go look great with Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor? He just left Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams and didn't play well.
It's not.
And I like Derek Carr.
Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams.
It is when you don't.
Daniels.
I agree with that part, but Derek Carr still hasn't played well this year. I like Derek Carr. I'm going to talk about this later, but
Rich Pistachio had that team a hair away from the Bengals, who went to the Super Bowl.
If you're a great quarterback, that Indianapolis offense is not attractive. Sorry. It's not. You got a great running back you can turn around and hand the ball off, and that's it.
I actually don't hate the Colts receiving core. I really don't. Pittman, I like Paris Campbell.
Paris Campbell?
Well, no, Alec Pierce too. I really like Alec Pierce a lot. I think Alec Pierce is going to be good with a good quarterback. I think that you've started to see how good Alec Pierce could be. I really believe that.
Okay,
I think Derek Carr. If Derek Carr had his choice, he'd take his core.
It's not elite. Agreed.
He'd take his.
I don't think Derek Carr has not had one season with a defense in the top 20 ever. He would walk into that immediately in Indianapolis.
I saw Darren Orlovsky tweet that, but that's not why they've been losing games this year. It's like, let's not just take all the blame away from Derek Carr. Like, I get it, a healthy, a good defense behind you. I
take the blame from.
Yeah, and it just hasn't worked out. And the Raiders have had a lot of injuries this year. Hunter Renfrow hasn't been healthy. Darren Waller hasn't been healthy all year. They've had a lot of injuries and bad things go their way. And when things get tight, Josh McDaniels can't coach his way out of a paper bag. But with that said, I don't know if, a quarterback like Derek Carr going to Indianapolis with a first year head coach, or what if he gets an offensive coordinator that is just like McDaniels, or it's a scheme that's not fit for him.
And that's
better. We're assuming that the coaches,
but you can't assume. They just hired Jeff Saturday, so you can't assume that.
That is true.
We blasted him on the show for it. If you're Derek Carr, you can't sign there and assume that Jim Irsay is going to hire the right guy. There's no way you sign a contract without a head
correct there. I can't assume John Elway is either.
I don't disagree with you.
And
my point is they took all that power away from Elway.
Coaching hires, and you're looking at Frank Reich or Nathaniel Hackett for our last head coaching hires, you would 100 times out of 100 go to Frank Reich.
Bro, they fired Frank Reich and hired Jeff Saturday, though. Like, it's different.
Jeff
like
Saturday's
you fired Frank,
the interim head coach.
I get it, but you fired him and hired that guy. That's my point. That's a decision. He was like, we're better off firing Frank Reich and bringing in a dude who used to play center that has no coaching experience. That was Jim Irsay's thought process, and he signed off on that shit. That's terrible.
And John Elway's thought process was we'll bring in Nathaniel Hackett and hope to get Aaron Rodgers.
Agreed.
And when we didn't, we panicked and got Russell Wilson, overpaid him, gave up tons of draft capital. I hate that situation. I really hate that. And not to mention, what division would you rather walk into? Would you rather walk into the AFC West with Kansas City, Los Angeles, and let's be that as it may, would you rather walk into that division, or would you rather walk into the AFC South with Tennessee?
I agree that situation-wise, the AFC South is obviously more attractable. Is more attractive. But at the same time, though, the roster, I like the Broncos roster more than I like the Colts roster. That's all I'm saying.
It's way better. You think it's way better?
It's way better.
I take Judy, Cortland Sutton, a healthy Javonte Williams. I take those guys on offense, and then the defense.
I'll
Said
take
it. The defense is
Colts
played.
offensive line over the Broncos offensive line.
It's not, bro. Dude,
but
like
look
at their rankings, man. It's not as good as we make it out. Quentin Nelson's great. The rest of that line's been garbage. It wasn't good last year. We're thinking the Indianapolis Colts offensive line from 2 years ago. It's not that anymore. It's not. It wasn't great last year. It's been worse this year. You got Michael Pittman. Cool. If you pair him with a good quarterback, is he top 15? Yeah, okay. I'll take Jerry Jeudy over Michael Pittman all day with a good quarterback. I would.
Listen, I've watched Jerry Jeudy.
And the defense.
You're a huge Jerry Jeudy fan. I've been on and off with Jerry Jeudy. I watched him this year. I've watched Michael Pittman perform with Matt Ryan. I watched him perform with Carson Wentz. I watched him perform with tons of bad quarterbacks. And
performing with
Jerry
bad quarterbacks doesn't.
2 weeks ago, he had 8 catches for 120 yards with Mark Rippon. Come on, man. I mean, like he's had no consistency there either. Like he's going from raw. He's had
Drew
8 million. Yeah,
Teddy
come on, man. It's him and Pittman are the same boat. It's and the defense.
My next question, which kind of leads into what we're talking about, is did Las Vegas make the right decision by essentially choosing Josh McDaniels over Derek Carr? Because that's what they did.
I disagree. I don't think that's what they did. I think they put themselves in a position to be very flexible. I didn't realize, I was looking more into it. I didn't realize that if Derek Carr got hurt in those last 2 games, then his contract is fully guaranteed next year. And with him not playing these last 2 games, it's not going to be a fully guaranteed contract, which gives them a lot of flexibility. So I think that's just a smart plan on their part, because I think they're going to do a situation similar to what we saw a lot of teams do this past offseason, where they're going to evaluate the QB market. If they can get somebody better, they're going to do it. But if they can't, they're going to stick with Derek Carr another year.
I'm going to talk about this later, but I'm going to agree with Gene on this one. I think the answer. What's the actual question?
The question is, did Las Vegas make the better decision by keeping Josh McDaniels over Derek Carr? Because that's what presumably it looks like.
Simple answer, no.
And I agree with that. I agree with you. I think that you're not fully guaranteeing your top 12 quarterbacks contract and letting him know that you're going to sit behind Jarrett Stidham the last 2 games of the season is basically a big frig you, screw you to Derek Carr. Devontae Adams just signed a huge contract to go play with his college teammate, $30 million in a year. And you're going to go, okay, your college quarterback that you just signed here to play with, we're basically going to treat like trash.
Yeah, but I mean, the situation, I think Devontae Adams, I mean, he was in Green Bay for a long time. I think he knows that at the end of the day, this is a business. But I think in a situation for the Raiders, I don't necessarily agree. If I had the choice between the two, between Josh McDaniels and Derek Carr, I'm taking Derek Carr every time. But I think the Raiders give themselves the opportunity to go out there and get a better quarterback.
The Raiders can win with Derek Carr quarterback.
I'm not saying that they can't.
But John Gruden and Rich Bisaccia had Derek Carr playing some of the best football of his life.
I'm not saying that
the Raiders organization let Rich Bisaccia go to sign Josh McDaniels, and now they're friggin' 5-10.
I'm not saying they can't, but you got big names that are going to be in play in the offseason.
Who?
Tom Brady might want to go back and play with Josh
McDaniels.
Not
going there.
I'm not saying he is, but if you think that he could be in play for you and him and McDaniels have that relationship already, why not consider it?
When you see what they've done to Derek Carr, how many quarterbacks you think are running to Las Vegas?
I'm not saying that they're running to there, but what I'm saying is maybe they have something behind the scenes already in place for that. I think Vegas is in a. It's not. Let's not act like teams don't do it.
RJ, let me.
Let's not act like teams don't do it.
Hold on. Let me answer this question real quick. Rich Bisaccia and John Gruden weren't. John Gruden was fired not because of Derek Carr or because of the team's performance. Rich Bisaccia was not fired because of Derek Carr or the team's performance. Rich Bisaccia was fired, and whatever. This is going to come off as stupid. I don't care. Rich Bisaccia was fired so they could hire a damn coordinator from New England, and I don't know I don't know why you don't keep Bisaccio. They look great with them. He walked into a situation where with Gruden and the whole situation with that, with Ruggs and the whole situation with that, and he walked in and took that team to the playoffs. I won't say it's race. I won't say that. But what I will say is this. I don't like where Mark Davis's head goes by taking Rich Bisaccio out of the situation and bringing in Josh McDaniels. It makes no friggin' sense. It's stupid. That team would die. Listen, I'll bring up a comment that Jacksonville Jaguar safety said again. I would die on that field for Doug Peterson. I hate it playing for Urban Meyer. Those players on that team were putting everything on the line. They were playing at Cincinnati and lost a one-possession game to the team that went to the Super Bowl for Rich Bisaccio. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Wasn't a sexy enough name for Mark Davis.
And that's a joke.
I agree.
So granted, like I said, Derek Carr. I don't have any Derek Carr flack. But if Josh McDaniels thinks that he could lure Tom Brady to Vegas, do you not move on from Derek Carr?
All right, here's Josh McDaniels.
But I'm saying if Tom Brady is the reason that, like, if Josh is like, I can talk Tom into coming, he knows my offense.
All right, well, I'll give you a scenario. What's more likely? All right, what's more likely? You don't guarantee Carr and he leaves, but you fire Josh McDaniels like you probably should, and you bring in, say, Sean Payton. What gives you a better chance of getting Tom Brady, Sean Payton or Josh McDaniels?
I mean, then you got two dominoes to fall. You got to get Sean Payton to accept your job, and you got to get Tom Brady to come in. Here, you just got to say, hey, Tom, here's a whole bunch of money. Come play with your old OC and go from there. And you throw to the best receiver in the league.
What's the one thing we always talk about? What you need to have in the NFL to win? You have to have a good quarterback play.
Yeah.
You a top 12 guy right now, to Gene's point, has been there through thick and thin, never quit on that organization, never said a goddamn bad word about him, was the face of it with the Henry Ruggs thing, stood up there and took bullets for John Gruden, and now you're going to force him out of town. I got bad news for you. If you don't get Tom Brady or Lamar Jackson, which I don't think you have a shot in hell of getting, you're going backwards next year. So now next year you're going to have a guy who can't coach with a worse quarterback in arguably the toughest division in football. Good luck.
See, that's the part that I disagree on. We saw what San Francisco did last year and how they handled the whole Jimmy G fiasco, where it was like, we think you're going to be out of town. We're going to do this. We got better options here. And then everybody, got their heads together. They sat down and they said, hey, we'll bring you back. And, whatever happens, happens.
Mark it, clip it, do whatever you want. Gino probably agree. There is no shot in hell Derek Carr ever plays a down of football for the Las Vegas Raiders again after what they did to him today. None. Zero.
Devontae Adams is still there. They'll talk him into it. I think you can get that going again.
I'll bet you he gets traded this offseason.
Facts.
I'll bet you Devontae Adams gets traded this offseason. Let me tell you where Tom Brady. And by the way, this is the third question. You guys are just literally. I love the segue that goes right into it because you guys brought Tom Brady up. Didn't even know it was coming. Where's Tom Brady play next year? I will answer the question for you first. You could say retired. You could say back to Tampa. I'll tell you the answer.
I know what you're going to say.
It's San Fran. It's San Fran. It's always been San Fran. You put him with Kyle Shanahan. Let me explain how this works. Ready? Jimmy G's contract is over. It's done. Okay? Trey Lance is recovering from ACL surgery. You have a spot. You have Deebo Samuel. You have Brandon Ayuk. You have a legendary defense. Hometown fan of the San Francisco 49ers. Tom Brady's going to go there next year and win the friggin' Super Bowl.
I think it's a great fairy tale. Like I think it's not fairy tale. Sorry, I think it's a great storybook ending. I think it'd be crazy to see. I just have to think if Trey Lance is healthy, dude, they're not going to play him in the third year of his deal and not know what he is. I just don't see it. I can't.
Yes, they will.
I can't. I don't think they will. I don't think. I just don't think there's any shot they wait to start him fully again until his fourth year of his contract. It just football wise, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It just doesn't. You know,
it makes perfect sense.
Listen. It makes perfect sense for Tom Brady. It doesn't make perfect sense for the Niners, dude. Like
you let that quarterback sit behind Tom Brady for 1 year, let him fully recover from his ACL injury.
Here's the problem. Is it 1 year? Tell me San Fran doesn't go out next year and go 13-4 like they probably will or better, like you said, because I agree with you in that defense. Don't tell me then Tom then has 8 and just goes, all right, now I'm done. When I can come back here play for another $10 million with the same exact run. But my point is, then what do you do with Trey Lance? You trade up to get a kid that you're never going to play?
It doesn't matter. You just won the Super Bowl.
I do agree with that, but at the same time, you don't mortgage your future to draft a quarterback that never plays it down for you. Like I think it's a different situation.
Yes, you do for a Super Bowl.
So if they go out next, listen,
whatever they could for a Super
Bowl. I personally think you do whatever you can do for a Super Bowl, but at the same time, I think you could win the Super Bowl without Tom Brady. You don't have to have a Tom Brady-esque quarterback to win the Super Bowl. So with that being said, why wouldn't you use the quarterback that could potentially be your future and you have for the next 5, 6, 7, 10 plus years and still be capable of winning a Super Bowl?
Hold on. Cottrell, I follow your point. Next year, Trey Lance coming off an ACL injury or Tom Brady, who gives you a better chance to win a Super Bowl?
Tom Brady.
Just hear me out here for a minute. Bill, next year, Trey Lance coming off an ACL injury or Tom Brady, who gives you a better chance to win a Super Bowl?
When did Lance get hurt? Like
week 1, 2, or 3, one of the two.
So he's a full year out.
Correct.
I mean, listen, it's still Tom Brady.
Okay, hold on. Just let me finish. I promise I'll stop.
Good.
If the 49ers sign Tom Brady and it's not working out, you have a healthy Trey Lance there. If they sign Tom Brady and they win the Super Bowl, who cares what they mortgaged? Who cares what they gave up? Who cares what Trey Lance will ever be if they win the Super Bowl?
My point is it's so much more that obviously you take the Super Bowl rig and you run. My point is you are at that point, you almost have to trade him because if he does go and if Brady goes in there next year and does win one and then goes, I want to come back, there's no shot Trey Lance plays. None. You have to get rid of him. I guess, man. I mean, that's.
You don't think you can get a first rounder back or a second rounder back for Trey Lance?
You don't get a first rounder from a quarterback that didn't play in 5 years, so you're not getting that back.
Yeah,
it would be 3.
It'd be 4 at that point.
It'd be 4. He'd be going on his 5th year.
His second year next year would be 3rd.
Yeah, and so if Brady says I want to come back, that'll be year 4.
So and he didn't play a lot of senior years. So
you're
almost literally 4 years without a full season of football.
I follow what you guys are saying, and if Trey Lance had feelings and says in this, that'd be fine. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't. Trey Lance's feelings don't matter.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think that, Tom Brady obviously would give them a better chance to win. My point would be, I think they can win with Trey Lance. And I think if they have Trey Lance and he's anything close to what they think what he can be with the age of that defense and all those pieces that they have, plus Kyle Shanahan at the helm, I think they could possibly win, 2, maybe 3 within the next 10 years, as opposed to just winning this one and then, trying to go back on their search for a quarterback after Tom gets done.
It's not going to be 1. That's the thing. Like I said, I think if he went to that situation knowing how good that team is and they won one, I don't think Brady walks away. And then he puts you right in that situation. And you can't go into that locker room with the guys who just want to ring with that guy and be like, oh, like we're going to kick him out now. And we're going to bring Trey back in. It's not going to happen. And then you should have a whole freaking debacle on your hands.
But to answer your question, though, Gene, I'm gonna get back into it, and I'm gonna go crazy. I think Sean Payton goes back to New Orleans, and you see Tom Brady go be his quarterback.
That'd be wild. Where do you think Tom plays next year, Bill? You could say his couch.
Nah, he's not. I mean, it's hard to.
He's divorced now. He's playing next year.
I hear you. I'm just giving him options. Tampa,
I honestly, like, I really do think it depends on how they finish. I don't know if he walks into a better offensive situation.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, because Tua's probably going to retire because he's going to be a vegetable soon.
Jesus,
it's not his fault. I don't know how. Like, it's not his fault. But he's had 3 concussions in like 60 days. Like,
I get it. I just fucking
vegetable. I'm not making fun of him. You get hit in the head 3 times. That's what happens. No, I'm not. It's not his fault. He's getting tackled. His head's hitting the ground. The Miami's medical staff is
let's throw him back out there.
Yeah, too busy drinking Mai Tais on the side and not paying attention to the goddamn players. It's a joke. I'm just going to default and say Tampa. Like I said, he's not going to walk into a better offense than he has there. I mean, I guess you could argue San Fran with him having C-Mac now.
Just on the screen, it's a better offense.
Well, I mean, it's
I don't know.
I don't know if he goes to Miami after all that crap that happened too. I don't know. I feel like it's a headache. I don't know.
All right, so last part of NFL breakdown before we get into our little bit of pick'em and then NBA talk. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams, really 5, fighting for one playoff spot in the AFC. All 6 playoff spots are locked up. Well, I'm lying. Jacksonville and Tennessee are still vying for the division, which Tennessee is conceding their game this Sunday versus Dallas. They've or Thursday, is it? Or Thursday?
They play Thursday.
They conceded the game. They're sitting everybody. Derrick Henry's not going to play. A bunch of stars aren't going to play. They're conceding it for the last week of the season versus Jacksonville.
So they play Jacksonville, which will then be for the playoff spot in the division.
Yep. Correct. So, but just talk about the wild card. You got New England, the Jets, Miami, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's in that discussion now, guys. Lamar Jackson doesn't play this Sunday because they locked up a playoff spot.
He's not. He hasn't practiced yet this week, so
yeah, there's no shot he's playing.
Pittsburgh wins that game at Baltimore. Miami's going to get the shit kicked out of them up in New England. It's one of my picks. I'll precursor that for you. Tua is not playing. Teddy Two Gloves is not going into New England to win that football game. Not a snowball's chance in hell that's happening. Could be Pittsburgh. Who gets that last spot? Could you imagine if Miami fell out of that playoff run? That'd be so poetic to Brian Flores.
I think they're going to. They've now lost 4 in a row. I thought them going home to Miami and getting out of the cold weather and playing all the other teams, they would play better. I mean, for a quarter and a half, they did. Still had the lead in going into the fourth, and then, the old crazy Tua showed up and started throwing the ball all over to Green Bay defenders. He's like you said, he's going to miss this week. I don't think there's any shot to get a New England win. So that's a heads up win for New England. That's a 2-game swing in essence. The Jets have their own goddamn quarterback debacle. They're saying White's cleared to play, so I'm assuming he's going to start. Yep. Zach Wilson's been terrible. I just feel like they lost all their momentum as well. Hate to say it, dude. I feel like New England's going to sneak in. I really do. I'll take New England's defense over Pittsburgh's offense.
The problem I feel like that's with New England is they play a tough game this week that they can win, 8-8. Next week they're probably going to be playing Buffalo for the 1 seed at Buffalo. So like the way everything breaks down, right? I'm looking at the Steelers situation. The Steelers play a home game versus the Browns next week. They're going to win this Sunday versus a backup quarterback in Baltimore. Pittsburgh's going to get that spot.
That game's going to be tougher than you think, but
I agree. Kenny Pickett was really good on that last drive, man, in like 4-degree weather.
Well, that means the Jets are playing Miami then, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
All right, so that's an elimination game then. So one of them's out. Whoever loses that game. That's what I'm saying. But you're talking about New England. My point is, you're talking about New England having to go play Buffalo. My point is, it comes down to probably New England. We're assuming Pittsburgh and whoever wins that other game, because the loser of that game is going to be done then. And who does New York have this week?
Seattle.
At Seattle.
Talk about a tailspin.
7-8.
I don't know who wins that game. I really don't.
I think the Jets win it. I really do.
Look, I'll keep it easy. My answer is the Jets. I think the Jets make the playoffs. I think they're going to win their last two. They're going to be in a situation Tua doesn't play next week either. I'm not worried about Teddy Bridgewater beating me. And the Jets look like a completely different team when Mike White is out there on the field. And you got to hope that he's healthy. But when he's out there, their receivers are able to make plays. Garrett Wilson looks like a good number one option for them. Everything just looks better when Mike White is out there for that Jets team. They fought like hell that Buffalo game, and he fought like hell even after he got dinged up in the ribs. So I think they beat Seattle. At this point, Seattle is they're just going through the motions. Yeah. And then next week with the Dolphins, you're going to have a team with their backup quarterback. I'll take the Jets in that situation. So I think the Jets win their last two, and everyone else is in a situation where the teams that are ahead of them at this point. I think Miami loses the game obviously to the Jets. I think the Patriots lose the game, and the Steelers they're technically tied with the Jets now, but they're still behind them. So even if they went out and the Jets went out, the Jets would be ahead of them. Correct. And they played head to head this year, and the Jets won.
And Pittsburgh's game is home against Cleveland.
Yes.
Well, there's any shot in hell that Pittsburgh would lose that game if it matters. I'm
saying if the Jets go 2-0 and the Steelers go 2-0, I think those are the only two that go 2-0.
Correct.
The Jets would be in that
Jets
situation.
Would be in over common win opponents.
Still know if the Jets go 2-0. That's my fear. It's gonna be fun to watch. I'll tell you that much. They absolutely could. I mean, listen. Go play Seattle in the cold, damp. I mean, they got to win a game again eventually, I guess.
Got news for you guys. We're gonna move to the NFC. Green Bay's gonna make the playoffs.
Yes, they are. The worst, I shouldn't say the worst, but they're going to be a very bad 9-8 team that makes the playoffs.
They got to beat Detroit. That's the game. That's a playoff game. And that, dude, week 18 is setting up to be so incredible right now. Because Detroit's going to beat Chicago. Green Bay plays at home this week versus Minnesota. Minnesota knows they're not getting the 1 seed. They wrapped up the division. That's why that spread's 3.5. They know Green Bay's going to win that football game. That's why they set that up. Don't let Vegas fool you. Green Bay's minus 3.5 because they know Minnesota doesn't need to win that football game. They know they're not getting a 1 seed. Don't let that spread fool you. This week, both teams win. It sets up a playoff game next week of Detroit versus Green Bay. In Green Bay.
That game? It's in Green Bay.
Is it? Hold on. Let me just double check. I don't want to run my mouth if I'm not 100% sure.
Minnesota isn't locked up to 2 yet, though, right? So they are essentially playing for something.
Yeah, them and San Fran are very close, 1 game apart.
Yeah, so Minnesota's pulled 2 games out of their asses 2 weeks in a row. I don't think they're going to go to Green Bay and do the same. Wow, that just magnifies the Detroit choke job last week even worse now.
Right?
They would have won last week and then won this week. I don't know if that game even matters next week then. Probably does, but
who makes the playoffs in the NFC? I'll tell you who's not going to make it. I'm about to say something really. What?
Dallas is locked into 5, correct? They can't move.
Hold on.
They technically can, but
no, they can't. They can move to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you guys win, they're locked into 5.
Correct.
All right, so they're locked into 5.
6 is probably going to be the Giants. And then 7, it could be 6. The Giants could fall out, but they're not in yet. Giants are 8-6-1. They need to win one of their final games, or they need a loss here or there.
And Washington's in the 7th seed right now.
Washington 7-7 and 1 in the 7th seed.
That freaking tie. That's hilarious. And Washington, I think Washington's going to win this week, but
you think I don't think Washington's going to win this week. They're starting Carson Wentz. Last time Carson Wentz played Cleveland, he threw more balls to Taki than he did to a wide receiver.
I think they'll win this week. And then who do they have next week? They have Dallas next week.
Yeah, they gotta have Dallas.
Yeah, because we have the Giants.
Yeah,
Dallas is gonna
rest.
Dallas ain't gonna play anybody in that game. I'll say Washington gets in.
Dallas might have to play people though. Somehow, some way, if the not saying that it happens, but if the Eagles lose this game, Dallas has to play everybody next week because they have to win that game. I don't think it happens, but I'm just saying.
Dallas is going to sit everybody that game.
It's interesting playoff race.
It is. NFC South is a shit show.
Well, that's the last question, and then we're done. Carolina versus Tampa Bay turned into a friggin' divisional playoff game this week. And guess what? The game's in Tampa. Just when you didn't think Tampa Bay could look any worse, they went into Arizona 7.5-point favorites, and Trace McSorley had them beat.
Little
magic at the end of the game. Tampa got out of there with a win. Carolina's played good football recently. They just stomped a mud hole in Detroit this week. It's a 3-point spread, which means you're basically saying it's even money on a neutral field. They're playing at Tampa. Carolina or Tampa. I would not be shocked if Carolina won this football game. I'm actually rooting for it. Give me chaos.
So who do they have last week then? So then one of them's playing Atlanta.
They got it. The Bucks would have Atlanta. The Panthers have the Saints.
Where are those games at? Do you have that up, Gene?
Yeah, I got you.
The Panthers game is at New Orleans.
That's going to be a loss.
Tampa Bay game is, I believe, home. No, it's at Atlanta. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Desmond Ritter's awful. I told you he's awful. He's terrible. Stop it. Bro,
dude's played. Listen, I agree with you. I don't think he's going to be good. I think he's a project. But the dude's played 3 games with no Kyle Pitts. Gene just wants to pile on the kid, dude. It's brutal. He stinks. He's got nobody to throw the ball to. He stinks. It's his fault.
Screw all you guys.
Listen, overall, I agree with you. I don't think he's ever going to be what anybody wants him to be. But the kid's played 3 games on a really bad offense.
Who wins the NFC South?
It's going to be Tampa Bay. Some way, somehow.
You know, it's funny. Carolina could win this game this week, and Tampa can go out and win versus Atlanta, and Carolina could lose versus New Orleans, and Tampa still make it.
I think that's the problem. I mean, New Orleans, assuming New Orleans just doesn't pack it in and
they can't pack it in.
They don't have a first-round draft pick, and they're a half game out of the division.
Yeah, so I'm saying they still can win the division. Yeah. They can't pack it in.
Yeah, I have no faith in Carolina. If New Orleans has a fighting shot to get in, still, there's no way I believe they go down to New Orleans and win that game. None.
Okay.
I got the Bucks winning it.
See, the problem is this: if Philadelphia beats New Orleans, and this is what scares the frig out of me this week in Philadelphia. If Philadelphia beats New Orleans, it really hurts the NFL because 2 more games become relevant next week if New Orleans beats Philadelphia. And that's the – man, I don't know why I'm such a conspiracy theorist. I don't know why my head goes these places. But when I see a holding call on the first drive of the game after a 23-yard completion – and I'm like, the NFL wants New Orleans to have a playoff game next week. It bothers me, man. It bothers me.
Your head goes there because it happens too often. That's why.
And that's the point.
Yep.
And it's the point. It happens. And it's one of those things where Eagles could beat the Giants week 18, and the NFL has another game that they have to cover. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
All those games become they matter. And the NFL wants as much money as they possibly can get. And what lines their pockets the most is New Orleans upsetting Philly and Philly. Jalen Hurts comes back next week to save the Eagles season to beat the Giants. It's a storyline, right?
Yep.
Yeah, storyline. Then he gets his 1 week rest by. I'd play Jalen Hurts this week. I really would.
I'd think about it.
No chance he doesn't play. In my opinion, he shouldn't play this week. The NFL is probably like, listen, we're going to screw you over this game. And then next week, we'll screw New York because they'll already be in the playoffs. So you don't have to worry about that. So you'll get the 1 seed. They probably call him on the phone, tell him.
Not wrong.
Roger Goodell, he's got the bat phone.
Man, I'm not kidding when I say this. It's so weird.
It happens too often.
I'll go Tampa.
I get Tampa.
But they're quitting, man. That team stinks.
And then the report came out today that they're going to most likely move on from Byron Leftwich at the end of the season. So,
man, how? I mean, it's just felon. He was just interviewing for a head coach job.
I know it's crazy.
That offense can't do what it wants to do right now because they're on third string offensive linemen in 3 of the 5 spots. Yeah. If they could block, dude, and then you let Godwin and Mike Evans run loose for 5 seconds, that team would look exactly like how it's supposed to be. It's just not going to right now.
Can you help me understand something real quick? Why does an offensive coordinator who just took his team to win a Super Bowl a couple years ago, who's just interviewing for head coaching jobs last year, have one bad season and move on from Tampa Bay situation? I just want to understand something real quick. I just feel like if that was in a different situation, bro, it rears its ugly head way too much. And I hate bringing this up, but it's the truth, man. I feel like
I think we have to wait and see if it actually happens first off, but I don't disagree with you.
I think a lot of it too is I don't know how Tampa, I don't know what the perception was after, because their coach Bruce Arians decided to leave the team after, everybody was all the coaches were basically off the market, and they were in a sense forced to hire Todd Bowles as their head coach in that situation. And then of course, he was going to keep Byron Leftwich and all that. So I don't know if Tampa Bay had bad feelings about that and they didn't want that to necessarily happen, or if it was just like they were on the same page and Bruce was like, hey, I'm going to step down and, this is already in place for you to take care of. So if there was ill will when that move happened, then I could see why that's happening now. But Gene, it does happen way, way too often.
Like, I don't hear anyone talk about Mike McDaniels losing his job after the first year, after the collapse in the Miami Dolphins, but Brian Flores lost his job after a 10-win season. It's just, it's baffling to me, man. It's constantly happens across the NFL. And Brandon Staley's been given how many chances? Cliff Kingsbury, how many chances? But Jim Caldwell lost his job after 1 season with Peyton Manning having a neck injury.
Caldwell one's really bad. And I mean, it's kind of one of the ones that's always brought up right away when we have this discussion. I mean, we've talked
about the fact that he lost his job in Detroit.
The whole Cliff Kyler thing over and over. I know what you're saying. I get it. There's just so much blame to throw around in Arizona. It's almost not the same situation.
Agreed. And with Kyler not playing next year, it's perfect for Cliff King. The reports are Cliff Kingsbury is going to walk away from the team. Yeah, okay. We're not going to fire you. Just go walk away, and we'll
save face, and you could probably go coach college football. And
correct.
I mean, it's probably 2 birds, 1 stone. But again, I mean, I think it's a buyer beware situation on both cases. I don't think Cliff is the guru that everybody makes him out to be, and I just don't think Kyler's going to be a top 10 quarterback. I don't care who his coach is, unless his attitude and his work rate and him being a better teammate. Unless all that shit changes over the next year, he's not going to be a top 10 guy.
Can I tell you what I've been dying to say this entire show? We brought it up earlier, and you just reminded me of it. We talked about this for a long at nauseum last year. Eric Bieniemy getting a head coaching job in the NFL has to be a unique situation because he's definitely pissed off a few people. LaShawn McCoy speaks out very strongly against him. Atlanta had a bad experience in the interview process with him. I'm telling you right now, a hard-nosed coach like Bieniemy that has no problem arguing with his players like he did with Mahomes might be the cure for Arizona. I feel like it's one of those situations that could almost be too perfect.
While I don't disagree with the sentiment of it, it's a roll of the dice. Because if you bring a hard-nosed guy in like that, and Kyler just goes into the shell even more, then you're debatably in a worse position than you're in right now.
Impossible. You're sink or swim with Kyler Murray. If he goes into a shell and acts like a baby with a hard-nosed guy, you can.
Yeah, but then you have no
point,
shot.
At that point, I would know that I have to move on from Kyler Murray. He can't be my franchise guy. And I get it. You just paid him this extension, but I don't think that teams would shy away from trading for a talent.
I don't think they're capable of making that decision either way. And I say that simply because they extended both of them this year. Like in their eyes, they think this is still going to work out somehow.
No way Cliff survives the season.
I don't disagree with you. My point is though, the people that are making the decisions in that organization all sat down in a room and said, we're going to give Cliff an extension, then we're going to extend Kyler, and we're going to figure it out. So everybody in that building still thinks that's the move going forward. While everybody else in the country goes, you got to move one of them. Like it's not going to work. So it's, I mean, again,
Godfrey, I want to respond to Godfrey real quick. He said, Sean Payton. I'm going to be honest with you. Every single head coaching job, every single one, you're going to hear Sean Payton and back to Brinks truck up. Here's the problem. He has his pick. They all want him. And that's not a job that you want to walk into. It's just not. And J.J. Watt retiring. Nuke's going to ask for a trade in the offseason. Guarantee it.
You're asking a guy who had like one of the most professional relationships with a top 10 quarterback of all time to go babysit Kyler Murray. Not going to happen. I just don't see it.
More.
I don't see it.
Peyton's only coming out if he can get one of those top-notch quarterbacks, top 10, or a quarterback that's young. And like if he could get like a Trevor Lawrence per se, that'd be the only type of quarterback that he's coming to get.
Tell you what, Doug cemented himself down there, bro.
Doug ain't going nowhere.
They're going to call Doug and give him a lifetime contract. The organizational turnaround for that team.
Trevor Lawrence.
Doug Peterson.
All
right, guys. We got to get an NFL pick'em. We had a great NFL segment. That was one of the most fun segments I've ever had on this show. 3-0 week. I went from 20 and 25 to 23 and 25. Let's get above 500. By the way, half game lead for the toilet between Scholastic Shalley and College Control.
Coming out of the dungeon, baby.
I love it.
You're lucky you got those two ties, your two pushes. All right, baby. Back to Uncle Shalley's Super Sunday Fade Corner. Here we go. I'm going first. I love all my picks this week, though. So, again, it's either a really good thing or a really bad thing. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm either going to win you some money or I'm going to lose you your allowance. You have to go beg. You have to go beg grandma for some money to spend at Wawa. It's not my problem. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So listen, we're going to start with San Francisco -10 at the Raiders. Raiders are dumpster fire. We already talked about them ad nauseum today. San Francisco's going to go in there and lay the woodshed to freaking Vegas. They're going to start Jarrett Stidham. He's probably going to throw about 5 or 6 interceptions to that defense. I think the Raiders get rolled on Sunday. Second game, we already talked about a little bit as well. Miami at New England. New England -3. Get it now because it's just going to continue to get higher. Get it now at 3 while you can. Make some money. Miami is not going into New England, just like Gene said, with Teddy Bridgewater and winning that football game. No shot. I think New England wins that game by double digits. Final game, Chicago at Detroit. I think Detroit goes home, circles the wagons a little bit. They have Chicago coming to town. I think it'll be another great performance from Justin Fields, and I think it'll be another great performance by Justin Fields and nobody else. I like the Detroit to get back on track. And to Gene's point, make that game next week at Lambeau Field makes it matter. So I think Detroit minus 5.5 gets it done. I think they win by a touchdown. So those are my 3 picks for the week.
All right. Well, I guess I'm up with my 3 then. I'm gonna start off with a game that kind of touched on a little bit before. I'm taking the New York Jets minus 1.5 at Seattle. I think Seattle's packing it in, and I think the Jets, they're going to be inspired again. You know, Mike White's going to be back out there, and that team's going to be ready to win. They know that the playoff spot is really basically in line with this game here, and I think they know that Tua is out, and, you know, everything is really in front of them. So I think the Jets go out there. Robert Saleh has them ready to roll, and they cover that 1.5 pretty easy. Next game I like. Bucks minus 3 home versus the Panthers for all the reasons that we talked about with all the implications in that game. I think Tom Brady at home, he's going to be ready to roll, and he wants to get that. Obviously, everybody wants to get their team in the playoffs, but Tom's been here before, and, you know, with the back against the wall, I'm never going to bet against Tom Brady. So I think the Bucks win that one pretty comfy. Then the last one that I like in a game that Gene was talking about potentially being fixed. I like the Saints plus 5.5 versus the Eagles for that exact reason. You know, nothing about this. I understand Jalen Hurts isn't playing, but to me, I think this spread should still be larger than 5.5. The Saints haven't played good football recently. I know they're coming off one against the Browns. They didn't play well in that game. They ran the ball well, but the Saints haven't played good football, you know, in pretty much all season. And they're still only 5.5 point dogs in this one. So I think they go up to Philly and they play hard and they keep that game somewhat close. And, you know, the NFL storybook writers, they want to have week 18 matter where the Eagles have to get this win or the Cowboys could potentially steal the 1 seed. So I think everything goes in New Orleans' favor in this one.
I think I'm stealing your guys' picks, man. It's kind of weird. I don't like being on the same side as you guys. I have bonus picks, and my bonus picks are all going to hit, which is stupid. I don't know why they're my regular picks. Joseph Jeffers just touched on one. Cowboys minus 600 versus the Titans. I think they're going to absolutely kill them. I don't even know why that, but it's not one of my picks. 10 points a lot. I also implore you to watch what happens this Sunday, because if the Steelers beat the Ravens, then all bets are off. But if the Ravens beat the Steelers, you can just delete the game. The Bengals don't play anybody Monday Night Football, and the Bengals get destroyed versus the Buffalo Bills on Monday night because the game won't matter. Next week will be for the division, and everything will be locked up to where it's at. But once again, that has to do with Sunday. But here are my 3 official picks. I got New England minus 2.5. I got it at 2.5 this morning. I talked to you guys about that earlier. I got it at 2.5. It's at 3 now. I would buy the hook down just in case, because New England's offense stinks. But I got New England minus 2.5 over Teddy Bridgewater. I think they'll cover that by more than 2.5. But buy the hook if you have to. If you get a 3, buy the hook. I bought it at 2.5 this morning. Give me the Jets minus 1.5 at Seattle. Mike White's back. Seattle's falling apart at the seams. I'll take the Jets. They play really hard for Robert Saleh. They play really hard for Mike White. Finally, last on the docket. Give me the over 52 in Bears versus Lions. That game's going to be a high-scoring game. The Lions are going to come back and destroy the Bears. I think it'll be Justin Fields will do some incredible things. I think the Lions might be able to cover this 52 by themselves. So give me the Lions and the Bears over 52. We got some strong picks this week. All right, guys. NBA. Any final NFL thoughts before we move forward? I always ask. I just want
no.
Whoa. That's not good.
What's that?
So the stream just ended on my phone. Okay, maybe it didn't. All right. Okay. NBA. If you ain't in the comments, just comment. Make sure, because I got a weird notification on my phone. But all right, NBA. Let's move forward to NBA. We got a ton to get into NBA. Christmas Day games were fun. Luka last night, one of the most incredible performances you'll ever watch in your entire life. 60 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists. Can you think of a better performance that you've seen in your lifetime in a regular season game? Ever?
Of my lifetime, no. Regular season, that's probably the craziest one, especially given how everything happened in that game as well. You know, them being down 2, Luka at the line, misses the free throw intentionally, gets the putback to send it to overtime. 60, 21, and 10 is just incredible, any way you slice it. So I would say this is, in regular season, I get it. This is probably the best regular season performance I've ever seen.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I mean, individually, yeah. I mean, it's definitely in the discussion. If I knew this, I probably looked up some stuff. I never do these spur of the moment.
Kobe's 81, of course, comes to mind.
I literally thought of Kobe's 2 games, Kobe's last game, but he also took like 40 shots in that game. They were just pretty much letting him chuck it up. So, that was a tough one. I mean, nothing's like not regular season. Nothing is popping off the page at me here.
I don't think there's ever been a better performance in regular season history than 60, 21, and 20. Or sorry, 60, 21, and 10. I have never seen it ever in my lifetime. So let's talk about last night, how that happened. Luka and the Mavericks were getting killed. It felt like down the stretch the game was over.
Down 9.
Down 9 with what, a minute 15?
I think it was less than that. A little bit less than that. I think it was under a minute. But yeah.
Cool. The intentional missed free throw, followed by a catch off the missed free throw, throw it up at the rim. It went in. Luka's face when it happened was hilarious.
He's like a little kid.
Yeah, I got the whole entire play-by-play right here. Fourth quarter. They were down 8 with 33 seconds left. 9 with 33 seconds left. 9 with 33 seconds left. Christian Wood makes a 3. Luka makes an N1. McBride makes 1 of 2 free throws. Dinwiddie makes a 3. McBride makes both free throws. Luka makes the first of 2 free throws, misses the second intentionally, and then gets the offensive rebound and makes an 11-foot jumper to head into overtime. How does that happen?
Luka magic.
Luka magic. A lot of chaos. Couple lucky bounces, and making the most of your opportunity. All those things combined. You get
in all the years that you've watched sports, Christmas Day has always been owned by the NBA. Always.
Not this year.
That's my question was, did you feel like Christmas Day was owned by the NBA this year, or do you think the NFL took precedent?
I would say the NFL took precedent.
The numbers say NFL took precedent. For me personally, it was definitely different not being at home, but I found myself watching more NFL than NBA. Like, there weren't games that really, excited me, and I know the NBA schedules their games before the season. Same with the NFL. The NFL, they had some dud games, but you only get 17, now 18 weeks of the NFL. Like the NBA, you get games every other day for, months on end. So I think for me, NFL is always going to take precedent in that sense. But if you could have like flexed the game somehow, some way where I could see Kevin Durant on Christmas against, some other really good team, as opposed to seeing LeBron and the Lakers against the Mavs when they don't have AD, and
is that LeBron's contract?
Like
they get on Christmas every year.
I think it's just the market.
It's like
you got.
Well, I mean, listen,
you get LeBron, who's one of the more fan favorite.
I mean, that's what it's really about
in LA.
I mean, it's no mistake that the same couple teams play almost every single Christmas day. Like your LeBron's going to play. The Bucks are always on somewhere. You had JoJo on early. You had Luka versus LeBron late. Obviously, you're missing Steph the late game.
Yeah,
but that was supposed to be Steph for his job, which is what we thought that was beginning of the year. Yeah, I mean, they're putting their stars on the biggest stage of
the best game of the night was the last game, but no one watched the 10 o'clock game.
The Nuggets and Suns.
100%, 128, 125 in overtime.
Yep.
Best game of the night by far.
Yep.
Landry Shamet went off in that game, bro. 31. Landry Shamet. I like them apples. Jokic, man, playing incredible. 41-point triple-double.
People are saying he should be the MVP.
Oh,
he's starting to gain steam again.
Of course he is. And listen, I can't hate on it. 41-point triple-double is incredible. And I just watched Joel Embiid last night, even though he dropped 44, turn the ball over the last 3 possessions of the game to lose to the Wizards. I don't care if you drop 44 in that scenario. Turn the ball over all 3 times to lose the game. That's what I seen. Listen, if it isn't for JoJo, they're not in the game. I understand that, but there's got to be some, and kind of where I want to start after the Christmas Day games. Christmas Day games were a bore, right? And I'll get to JoJo in a minute. Christmas Day games were a bore. The one surprise for me was that Memphis did not destroy Golden State. Golden State won that game. I would have bet money, and I didn't. Thankful I did. That Memphis was chomping at the bit to get at this game to destroy Golden State. Guess what happened? Jordan Poole went off. Golden State won that game by 14.
Yeah, I mean, that game. You got to also think though too that as much as Memphis was chopping at the bit to get to Golden State was been the same way. Obviously they haven't looked the same since Steph's been out with his injury, but this is probably the one game they actually had circled on their calendar where it's like, hey, you guys are coming to our house. You guys are always talking. We got to show you, who the big dogs are in the Western Conference. So I think as much as Memphis had it circled, Golden State had it circled as well. And, right now it's really just all about, treading water until Steph gets back. And then you're going to see them, go on their surge again. But I think this game was super important for them. Just the psyche and just to let Memphis know, like, hey, we're still the top dogs, even without our guy right now. So once he gets back, we're going to be even more of a problem to handle.
Okay. I looked at that game as if Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies needed to go in there and make a statement. That Ja Morant made the comment earlier in the week talking about what team is he worried about running through. And he said the Celtics. Ramona Shelburne said anyone in the Western Conference. He goes, no, I ain't worried about the Western Conference.
Nope.
I'm good there. And after that, a Steph Curry less Warriors team. And you could tell Klay Thompson really wanted to put it to Golden State, but he was played terrible. He didn't shoot well at all. He had 25 shots. But Jordan Poole, Dante DiVincenzo, even Marcus Moody got in and played well. Draymond Green, 13 assists, 13 boards. Didn't really do it with the scoring, but did it, with the defense and creating. But the only player on the Memphis Grizzlies that showed up for that game was Ja Morant. Ja dropped 36. Nobody else had more than 13. It's a problem.
That's part of the problem with that kind of a team, though. Obviously Desmond Bane didn't play well. I think he only had 9 points in that one. But for those kinds of games, you get emotional and you get off your game and you're on the road, you're in Golden State. Clay had his comment about Jaren Jackson after they won the finals and this and that. So the Warriors have made it personal with this Grizzlies team. And so, of course, the Grizzlies wanted to go out and win this game, but I think you could see a lot of emotions in this one, and they weren't playing how they should be.
Yes, Dylan Brooks was talking crazy trash. He was. Kyle Edwards, by the way, if you don't follow him, man, Kyle Edwards is the man. I suggest you take out your phone and follow this man on any show he's on. The guy's awesome, one of the most knowledgeable people you'll talk about. Appreciate you checking in, Kyle. But it's absurd how Memphis did not show up for this game without Steph Curry. It really made me feel like Memphis is chomping off more than they can bite, chomping off more than they can eat.
I think that's part of it, though. I really feel like the letdown was like Steph wasn't there. It didn't have the same intensity. They want to beat Steph, or they want to beat the Warriors with Steph. Not that should ever happen, but I really feel like that's part of it. I feel like if they would have won, they would have been like, all right, well, you didn't beat the Warriors with Steph. They weren't full strength. And then I think they just went in there and laid a dud. Like you said, Jordan Poole had a great game. Draymond Green went nuts, not scoring. We doesn't really score a lot anyway. But, after that comment, you could definitely tell Golden State showed up and would definitely wanted to win that game without Steph. So, I don't know, man. West is going to be nuts come playoff time. I mean, nobody can really separate from the pack. Phoenix looked like they were going to earlier. That Paul got hurt, and he came back. Now Booker's hurt. He's out for a month.
Booker's out a month.
month.
Literally my next topic. How can the Suns survive without D Book for a month?
Make a trade.
Oh, you gotta make a trade. I mean, I think it's
they're
not going to fall. They're not going to fall in the playoffs. They just got to tread water. I mean, they'll beat the teams they should beat.
Is feast or famine right now. It's so tight there. You cannot go into the hole. And obviously, once Book comes back, you can climb out of it. But you don't want to fall too far behind. I think you have to make a move to get somebody to win some more games that you can't. Chris Paul, as much as I give him hate all the time for. He's not playing like the Chris Paul even of just 2 years ago as of late. Like he can't, him and DeAndre Ayton can't hold you afloat. You got to make a move to get some scorers on your team or you're going to lose 8 of your next 11 or, 9 of your next 12. Like this can get real bad for that Suns team without Devin Booker.
Listen, that Suns team is going to have to rely on some CP3 magic. He looked good last night, really good last night versus Memphis. And Dwayne Washington went off. So give the kid credit. Dwayne Washington went off. Former Ohio State kid.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, my next question would have been, I want to move into JoJo after the Phoenix Suns, and then we'll wrap up. Philadelphia 76ers are the 5th seed right now. The 13 losses. They're like 2-3 games out of 1 seed. Nothing crazy. Yeah, you got the seat standing. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being prepared. They're full game behind the Cavs because Cavs played 2 more games, same amount of losses. They're 1 loss behind the Brooklyn Nets. They're 2 losses behind the Milwaukee Bucks and 3 losses behind the Boston Celtics. Joel Embiid, and I said this on another show, and I'll say it here. Him and James Harden do not like each other. It's a problem that you have to see this and watch it the way I watch it. Doc Rivers, and I'll give him credit, is trying to manage the relationship by giving them full spurts without playing with each other. So Harden can control the offense and Embiid can control the offense. But when it comes down the stretch, the Philadelphia 76ers are so bad at running sets, at running plays, at having any type of offense. It's stagnant, it's weak, and they turn the ball over at an astronomical level. They get tight. That 76ers team is going to be another 3, 4, 5 seed this year. But when the playoffs get tight, if Joel Embiid and James Harden can't learn how to work together, and you could see the body language on the field, on the court, you could see it. James Harden doesn't want to pass the ball to Embiid. Embiid's constantly calling for the ball. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. Harden will, when Embiid takes a bad shot or turns the ball over, guess what James Harden does?
Does he flail?
He throws his hands up.
Yep.
He body language is terrible. I'm telling you guys. I'm telling you. I just, it doesn't look good, man. My prediction in the Western Conference looks a lot better than it does in the Eastern Conference. I think that's safe to say, if I'm being honest with you. I think that the New Orleans Pelicans, being my bold prediction, taking them, they've looked great.
Yes, they have.
Should we be surprised that a teammate gets frustrated with Harden?
Nope.
Kyle Edwards asked.
Nope. It's been the same way, same guy everywhere he's gone.
I mean, I'm not saying. I mean, I do agree with that. But you guys would obviously know better than me. At what point do you think it's like 80% Harden, 20% JoJo, or do you think that Joel really isn't to blame here? It's more Harden's reactions with everything. Like, what's your take on it?
Shal, you want to start there, because I have a really strong opinion on this.
I am one of the more, I don't want to say critical, but I'm one of the last people to usually let JoJo off the hook with things, because I just think he has the ability to be so great that he does stupid things sometimes, and I'm overly critical of him because again I think he has the potential to be even better than he is. That being said, in this situation, especially this last stretch, the last 2 or 3 weeks, like Gene said, where it's becoming very evident all of a sudden. And I think Doc has done a good job of keeping them separately off the floor for the majority of the game. Big issue. The other big reason he can hide it right now is because Maxi's not out, but Maxi's going to be back Friday, they're saying. So, I'm not going to say JoJo has zero blame. I'll put the majority of this on Harden, though. It's James wants to play a certain way, and if he can't play that way, he gets what this is how he gets. This isn't something that's going to that's sprung out of nowhere. This is a pattern of behavior of everywhere he's been. James wants to dribble and do his thing and shoot. He can't blow by people like he used to anymore. And I don't care what anybody wants to argue. Joel Embiid's our best player. If we have a tie game at the end of going down with the ball, then in regulation, the ball should be in his hands at some point. I don't need to see James Harden dribble for 15 seconds and then decide to go do something. So in that aspect, I completely agree with Gene. I don't know. I said at the beginning of the year I didn't want them to re-sign him. I haven't changed my mind on that. I just don't think he made us that much better this year, and I don't think he's a long-term play for us. So I will side with JoJo on this.
I think it's the blame. I think Joel Embiid is the hardest superstar in the NFL and the NBA to play with. I blame James Harden 50%. I blame Joel Embiid 50%. I don't want to release blame on Joel Embiid because I don't think James Harden's a good teammate. I don't want to relinquish blame on Joel Embiid because I believe that James Harden isn't the best of teammates. As far as I'm watching the game, James Harden makes the right play. His passing game reminds me very much of LeBron James. His, at the end of the game, fear of the basketball reminds me a lot of LeBron James. James Harden has serious issues with clutch time performance. However, Joel Embiid cannot dribble the ball, down the lane into 3 people. He has 0 handles and just force anything up down the stretch. What happens is this, right? All game, Embiid gets those calls. He gets those ticky-tack, touch calls. Gets them all game. But the last minute of the game, he doesn't get the flail of the arms. He doesn't get those slap on the wrist calls. And he's playing the game like he played it for 47 minutes. And in the 48th minute, the officials tend to swallow their whistle a little bit more, which I would prefer them to call the game like they call playoff games all year and allow a lot more contact than they do. Joel Embiid plays dumb basketball. He is so talented. And I think that someone like James Harden, who has astute knowledge of the game, who's one of the most intelligent point guards you'll ever come across, of understanding where the ball needs to go. I'm not saying he's a good teammate. Not saying he's blameless. But I think Joel Embiid's poor play ends up pissing off someone like James Harden. I think you need to be able to develop a team that can play around like a Jimmy Butler. Man, I keep bringing Jimmy up because Jimmy would have walked up to Joel and be like, man, you're the guy. Like, you're the guy, but you can't make that play. And Joel entrusted Jimmy at the end of the game with the ball to shoot, and he did whatever they could to win the game. Jimmy Butler's the tough guy that will tell you how he feels, and he'll get in your face when a situation happens. James Harden's not that guy. He's going to flail his arms. He's going to make you look bad. And Joel Embiid is also a guy that does that, where he makes comments. And I brought this up last year, and I didn't know how they would coexist after this comment. You are expecting the James Harden Houston James Harden, and he is no longer Houston James Harden. You can't say that when someone's up for a contract, whether you feel it or not. I gave him a pass with the Ben Simmons talk when he said something about Ben not putting it up, and I thought it was wrong. I said it was wrong. But he did it again this offseason with James Harden. I don't think it's right. I think he's one of the toughest superstars to play with. And I think the difference between him and Nikola Jokic is everyone loves to play with Jokic. Not everyone loves to play with Embiid. Embiid is more talented. He's the better basketball player, but it's a very equivocal difference between who is statistically better between Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell and who is the better player to play with, who wants to win more. I hate using that example, but it's the truth.
I was expecting Bill to have some sort of rebuttal.
No, I mean, part of it is like what Godfrey just said. Like we were, everybody was okay with certain things being said about certain other people. And now he's just being honest about James. And now James gets his feathers ruffled. And if that is the case, but again, I mean, it's he did the same thing when nobody said anything bad about him in Brooklyn. Nobody said he's bad about him in Oklahoma City. Nobody said anything bad about him in Houston. Like he was Houston. Who?
James Harden didn't play for Oklahoma City.
Yes, he did.
What are you talking about?
James Harden played. I'm sorry. Oh, you're talking about the beginning of his career. Oh my Lord! I don't know why in my head I'm thinking Houston, Brooklyn, Philly. Oh, my apologies.
My bigger issue, I don't like the comparisons to LeBron. I don't like that because I don't think he's in the same realm as LeBron. I think James Harden is very good when James Harden wants to be very good. I think there's other times he wants to do his own thing and he doesn't give a crap. And I think it's easy to see that on the TV when you watch the games. At the end of the day, for me, we could say, the whole contract talk. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't. Like, and he's not wrong. And I didn't really take that as big a slight as other people did. Like, I think it was, it's not that he's a bad player anymore. He's just a different player. And that's the same thing as like anybody else that goes through. LeBron's not the same type of player as he was 10 years ago. And I don't care about the money factor because he still got paid. He still got exactly what he wanted. And now you have the whole thing, starting to surface that behind the scenes that he's telling people he wants to go back to Houston. That's not going to sit well with Joe either. And that was the whole thing. That was one of the big things with Ben. Like, he's like, all right, if you don't want to be here, then don't be here. And if that's the case with James, then don't be here. And if he's going to be the leader of this team in the face of the franchise, then I don't have any problem with him saying it either. Listen, for sink or swim, whatever you want to call it, like, we're going to ride JoJo until JoJo can't play anymore. Like, he's going to be the center of this team. If you're coming here, you know that. Can JoJo be a little abrasive? Can JoJo troll sometimes a little bit too much? Okay, fine, whatever. It's not a reason to go out and try to and not win games or not do certain things that you're supposed to do. Like, again, man, I mean, I hate that you brought up Jimmy Butler because it's just another example of how much of a drastically different situation we would be in if Jimmy Butler was still here.
That's the part that bothers me.
If I can't imagine what this team looks like with Jimmy, JoJo, Maxey, and Toby. Like, it's just it angers me to even think about it. But
you replace Jimmy Butler for James Harden. I think this team's no doubt about it in the NBA Finals.
I don't disagree. But again, I mean, it's the same thing, man. I mean, that was my big gripe with them re-signing him. I think they had a chance to walk away from him. This is literally my argument. I didn't think them bringing him back was going to make that much of a difference. I would have rather have taken the year off, not got a big free agent, and just had the money and done, maybe make a trade and see where it goes from there, and then start over next year, which is exactly where we're going to be anyway. He's not staying here next year. Like, this is just, like, to Gene's point, this isn't going to get any better. This is just going to get worse. Like, as we go down the stretch and get into the playoffs and everything else, like, this is going to continue to accumulate and get worse and worse and worse. So that's the part that sucks. Like, if you're a Sixers fan right now, you know where we're going. Like, you know where this is going to progress and where this is going to get to. And at the end of the year, it's going to be a pissing match. And like I said, at the end of the day, we're still going to have JoJo, and then James isn't going to be here. So I don't know, man. It's just frustrating.
I'll get into it in a later date because we're going to wrap up. We're going to get into You Got to Be Kidding Me. But I'll get into it in a later date. But I don't think we're still going to have JoJo. I think the time for the Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid is rapidly running out before Joel Embiid forces his way out of the situation. And I'm telling you, I'm telling you it's coming. You can read the writing on the wall.
Only reason, and I'm sure we'll get more into it later on. The only reason why I disagree with that is because I think Doc will be gone before that happens, and JoJo is kind of going to have his hand in picking who he wants to come here.
Agreed.
I don't agree. Guys, just kidding. You got to be kidding me. Control.
All right, so I got a fun one this week.
Yes.
Very, very not serious. Gene, you were probably affected by this as well. So EA, they make a ton of money off their game, off their product. And, Connected franchise is probably, the fan favorite, but it doesn't make EA a whole bunch of money. Madden Ultimate Team, that's what makes them all their money.
Yep. So
this past week, for you guys that didn't know, the connected franchises across the world, entire game, just stopped working. And, EA didn't come out with a timely tweet. They didn't send out an email or anything. 2 days after the problem comes out, they send out this generic tweet. Hey, we're working to fix the problem. We'll keep you updated. And then 2 more days go by and the game's still not working. They come up with another tweet. They said scheduled maintenance is at 5 a.m. Try to have all your games done before then, because we're shutting down the server. So now it's finally fixed, and yay, that's great and everything. But it just shows you how much EA does not care about their consumers. Ultimate Team has never had these kinds of issues because people pay, $9.99, $20 a month or whatever for these packs and things like that. But meanwhile, the people who've been doing franchise, they just keep getting the same regenerated product every single Madden, and they do nothing to fix it. Then they have server issues every year. So for me this week, EA Sports and your lack of care for us connected franchises across the world.
On, you gotta be kidding me.
I love the face that he's Ari Gold to me makes at the end of that. Shally.
I don't really have one now. I mean, I was going to use the whole Vegas card thing. I think we talked about it enough, and me and Gene are kind of on the same page. And I don't think we need to rehash it and go back through it again. So you can go right to yourself this week.
Well, I don't really have one either, but that's okay. What I wanted to spend the last minute of the show, and I kind of wanted to use my "You Got to Be Kidding Me" for this. And maybe we'll just say "You got to be kidding me" because we wish it would have happened. A legend announced this week that he'll be retiring from the NFL. One of the greatest defensive linemen you'll ever watch in your entire life, multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year, J.J. Watt, is retiring from the NFL. The reason I want to use it as a "you got to be kidding me" is because I really hate the fact that his entire career was wasted in Houston, and then he went to Arizona to try to join a winner, and his winning years in Arizona were ruined by a spoiled brat in Kyler Murray and a joke of a head coach in Cliff Kingsbury. I really hope that Arizona relinquishes his contract. He says he's retiring. If I'm being honest with you, I can see him coming back and playing one more season for the Pittsburgh Steelers and playing it right with his brother TJ and his brother Derek, who are both on that team. I could see him signing a team-friendly contract and making it a playoff run with young superstar quarterback Kenny Pickett. Superstar's a little bit extreme, but young star quarterback Kenny Pickett, and having a Minka Fitzpatrick and TJ Watt along with him in Pittsburgh. I hope they don't try to hold him to his contract obligation and basically relinquish his contract, because I really truly believe that J.J. Watt's got one more season in him, and it's playing with his brother, TJ, in Pittsburgh. So, I mean, you don't have to use the "you got to be kidding me" clip, but I just wanted to, if this is the last we've ever seen of J.J. Watt, I want to salute him for such a great career as an NFL defensive lineman.
I think the important thing to add, I mean, he's debatably a better human being.
God, what he did during that hurricane.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with what he did for the flooding victims of the hurricane a couple years ago, he's done numerous acts of kindness where there was I think it was this year. There was a guy that was a huge Watt fan, a huge Cardinals fan. He passed away unexpectedly, and his sister tweeted at JJ, and JJ tweeted back. He's like, "I'm going to pay for the funeral." That's just what type of guy he is. And even even his retirement, he just made a very simple statement. He didn't want I saw he did an interview yesterday morning, and he was saying that he didn't want the farewell tour. That's not what he wanted. He wants to go and be done. He's got a little kid now. And listen, I mean, the dude's got more surgeries than most people in the NFL. I mean, he's been, torn apart and put back together a lot of times. I think it's a quality of life thing, to be honest. They just had a kid, newborn. Yep. I know his wife's going to go back and keep playing soccer. So, he's made his money, man. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of the best to ever do it. I honestly think he's done. I would love the Pittsburgh angle. Not going to lie, would love that. I think a lot of that would depend on the Cardinals, and maybe if he has a healthy offseason, he would consider doing it. But I think it would pull a lot of strings there. But that would be really cool to see. It'd be really cool to see all three of them take the field at the same time. That would be special.
So, I mean, the other thing too is that he had earlier this year, he had AFib. So basically he just got his heart shocked back into rhythm. So I'm sure he's like him, his wife, they got a kid now. He's thinking about that too. He's had a great career. He's already a first ballot Hall of Famer. it's probably just that time to hang him up. Like, I'm sure he would love to go back and play with his brother. I'm sure he wants to win a Super Bowl ring, but I mean, I think the time is just now to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason he would ever come back would be either to play with them or a contender, like on a 1-year thing. I don't think he goes back through all that unless it's that situation. And I just don't think Pittsburgh's there next year. So I mean, it's tough. I would love to see it. I think it's kind of a long shot type thing, but hey, weirder things have happened.
So I wanted to give Wire to Wire listeners a shout out to Happy New Year. We will see you in 2023. We got some big things popping. Talks with Spotify. You guys, we have talks with Spotify and not Spotify. I'm sorry. Sirius XM Radio, not Spotify. But we got a lot of things in the works for 2023. New merch, as you can see with the new logo. We're doing a lot of things, and we appreciate everybody's support and listening. We did the whole cheesy thing last week for Christmas. But what I will promise you is next week we will have a year in review and all great things of 2022 from and Chally's favorite award, the Boner of the Year.
Boner of the Year. A lot of strong contenders this year. A lot of strong contenders.
Yep.
Gonna take home the infamous Big D statue. A lot of strong contenders this year. Crowded field.
But any final thoughts, gentlemen?
Nah, man, just kind of the same thing. You know, I don't want to get super sappy. You know, New Year's isn't Christmas, but hope everybody's a safe, happy New Year, healthy. You know I got a lot of stuff that personally I want to do next year. A lot of it involves the show, a lot of other things, letting go of a lot of things, telling a lot of people how it is type thing. But, you know, I hope everybody sets their goals and sticks to it. And like Gene said, we got stuff coming down the pipeline. Yeah, it's one of the things I'm thankful for. The show continues to move in the direction that it's supposed to. So, you know, we'll see where we're at next. You know, this time next year it could be a completely different situation. We'll see.
Oh, we will be. Just love listening. Love talking to you guys each week. Control, any final thoughts?
I got nothing. Hope everybody has a happy New Year. Be safe. Don't make any dumb decisions. I know, you know, the new year can bring out festivities. Just make smart decisions. And go Bucks. Hopefully they bring in the new year with a win.
Hopefully not. But thank you guys for listening. Look how a little bit long tonight. We thought this was going to be a short show. Episode 116, Wire to Wire, signing out.